Warp Core Breach, Episode 28. We are the champions.
Captain, enemy ships decloaking off our port bow.
They're charging weapons.
Shields up. Red alert.
They're firing.
Containment failure detected. Warp core breach imminent.
Welcome to Warp Core Breach, Episode 28. On this episode, David and a special guest host go super competitive as they talk about the events of regionals. We have exclusive interviews with several champions, and finally, all of the contributors are back to discuss their favorite 1-point cards.
Warning. Warp core breach detected.
I'm David Montgomery, and here's my co-host, the Jean-Luc, to my Boothby.
This is Craig Neal, taking second place at the California WizKids Open. I'm very happy with my performance this weekend.
So Craig, first off, I have to say thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've always wanted to hop on, see what it's like to be on the podcast, and now I get that chance.
I know, it's awesome. And second, I have to say you are the surprise name to make it, well, frankly, anywhere near top 8 at California Regionals. And I'm not saying that as an insult to you in any manner. It's just, I think California was stacked, especially when there were 3 or 4 players there who went to Worlds last year.
Oh, I can definitely agree that I surprised everybody, myself included, to be perfectly honest. I thought that there was going to be some very fierce competition, and to have made it as far as I did is still blowing my mind to this very moment.
Yeah, well, and there was so much innovation that came out of there, and I'm still like looking at build sheets, analyzing stuff, and going, okay, I like what I saw here.
Mm-hmm.
So, for the folks who don't know, Craig shows up on the Shipyard videos. He's a personal friend of mine. We play board games together. He was our cameraman for the booster tournament that Natasha and I did. And that's how you started learning Star Trek Attack Wing, correct?
That's correct. You guys kind of brought me in when you wanted a little bit of help with that, and I started watching the game thinking like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. I think the first exposure I ever got to it was one night you and Natasha were playing, and I actually helped clean up and was watching the last little bits of that match, and I kind of liked how the game played out. It was very methodical, and watching kind of got me a little bit interested, and so you kind of invited me into it when you started the booster tournament, and from there I've kind of been playing along with you guys.
That's right. I do remember we were playing an OP. I forget which one it was, but probably one of the last ones we ever did at Modesto.
Yeah, I was a little bit weirded out because I'd never seen you play the game at Modesto before, and I still haven't seen you play it there since, so it kind of stood out. And really, like, my entire involvement here has always been those little by chance interactions. Because if you remember, I only got into board games and Dice Masters because of, like, the one-off time I was going to be showing up for a meetup.com group. So it's just been a lot of luck and circumstance that has brought me here. But I'm very glad that it has.
Yeah, it's been awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your experiences at regionals. We'll get into your build in a little bit, but overall, you show up at 11:30 in the morning for regionals. What are your thoughts when you first show up?
My thoughts is I'm a little bit anxious, a little bit apprehensive. I know that I've got a build that I enjoy, I like, I put a little bit of time into, and I'm interested to see how it does, but at the same time, there's always that little bit of luck waiting for you behind the booster. You never know what you're going to get, and kind of accounting for that can be absolutely nerve-wracking, especially if you maybe pull something like the Bajoran that is going to make it a real struggle for you to make your way in the tournament.
Yeah. Now, which booster did you pull?
In the end, I managed to pull the Klingon booster, the IKS Baruch, I believe.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not great with the pronunciation of my Klingon.
It's nothing top tier, but it was definitely workable, and I think it definitely held its own against a lot of the other booster ships that I came up against in the tourney.
Yeah, now you ran that as the named ship with Captain Duras, dishonorable tactics, targeting systems, and Kurok, the crew member.
Yes, indeed. It's got a lot of pretty simple choices. I think the only real decision to be made when building that as a booster is whether or not you want to take the unnamed ship and one of the upgrades off in order to fit the anti-squadron weapon.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think that was going to be relevant.
Well, and you made the right call, because I think of the 19 people, there was one person running one fighter.
Yeah, it just didn't come up. None of the opponents I faced ever had a fighter, and so I'm very glad that I didn't decide to build that way, especially since the upgrades I did take ended up paying off fairly often in my 6 matches.
Yeah, it went that way. Now, you got through Swiss 3-0.
I definitely pulled that off. I'm not going to say it was all me. There was one match in particular, my second matchup, that got very, very close until it didn't get close at all. What happened actually was when I was piloting against my opponent actually misread which way my board cube was facing, and so decided to try and take it all out in one main alpha strike, and completely whiffed with all of his maneuvers, giving me about a turn and a half of just pure unadulterated fire across his ships with nothing coming back. So it could have gone either way, but it went very one-sided from that point forward, and that solidified my streak at that point, so I was fairly comfortable making it into the top 8 from there.
Yeah. Now, that was against Tristan, and he was running double bio ships. He pulled the Lakota booster.
I'll admit, I was afraid of the list. I saw it, and I've dealt with bio ships before, and I was not looking forward to it, especially as a Borg player. There's that little bit of lore behind it, too, the bio ships being the only species to really give the Borg trouble, so I was thinking I was in for a time of it.
Yeah, I was thinking you were too. Tucker and I were thinking that list would do really well, and Tristan probably would have made top 8, except he had to face you and Todd in Swiss.
Oh, lordy.
And when you have to face what ends up being the championship match in Swiss, you're probably in for a rough day.
Yeah, things don't go well for you too much after that.
No, so I gotta say, Tristan, if you're listening, you probably were the best player who didn't make top 8.
Mm-hmm.
But, some of that stuff just comes down to luck. That's where the pairings come in, that's where points are going to come in, and you just have fun.
Yeah, I would definitely not write off the amount of influence that luck can really have on this game. Not necessarily just the luck in what the dice roll, but also how your opponent reacts, who you get matched up against. There's a lot of factors that go into every single match that aren't necessarily represented just by a ship list.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's so many different aspects that play into a game. Plus, by the time you're playing in your 5th or 6th game, it comes down to stamina, mental fortitude, making sure you're always making the right decisions and remembering your combos and stuff like that. And it can be grueling on a player.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we made sure to give players a dinner break in the middle, after Swiss, before the cut to top 8. That way you kind of get that break, 45 minutes, go get food, get away from the tournament, relax, come back, you're ready to go again.
And believe me, I don't think I would have done nearly as well without that break. Not only for the fact that I was getting pretty hungry by the midpoint there, but also because I just come away from my 3rd round of Swiss, which was an absolute slogfest against Alex, I believe, who I, funnily enough, managed to get matched up again right off the bat once we hit top 8. So that was not something that I would have liked to have done back to back. Just 2 really long matchups against the same exact fleet that I barely scraped by the first time. So
yeah,
very happy that I got a break in the middle there.
So you had to play that match twice.
Yes, that was not fun.
Which time was easier, more enjoyable? Can you speak to the differences in the 2 times you had to play it?
I think I can. I definitely would say that the second time was easier on me. Firstly, because I'd kind of seen how he maneuvered the ships and what his overarching strategy was with the build, but also for the fact that I had kind of gained some confidence in myself. I hadn't been planning on making it out of Swiss, and by the time I was 3-0, I was starting to see that maybe I had a real shot at this, and making it to the top 8 as first seed was kind of a part of that. So having that confidence under my belt kind of had a calming influence and allowed me to really think about what I was doing and not really stress too much. And that was a big factor in me just going into the matchup with a clear head, especially after the break, and doing what needed to be done.
Yeah, should mention you were one of 2 players who went 3-0, 390, meaning you're getting as many points as are possible by tabling your opponents in every match during Swiss.
Yeah, that was difficult to do, but I pulled it off, and I'm quite happy about that.
Yeah, and then you win a roll-off for the 1 seed.
That one roll-off probably was one of my least favorite results of the entire tournament, just because it meant I was first seed as opposed to Alex's 8th seed, which meant I got to face him all over again. And while it was easier the second time, that was not something I relished doing because it's a monster fleet he built.
Yeah. While you may have had an easier time against the 7 seed, you then would have had to face Todd in the semifinals, and that could have had a different result. Who knows?
Oh, lordy.
Right. I mean, that all comes down to we don't know what would have ever happened had the results been different, and one different decision can alter the entire impact of a tournament. And
yes, the butterfly effect is very much real, and so you can only really judge what actually happened at the event itself.
Yeah, and Alex's list, because we should actually mention this, because I loved what he brought, was a Regent's flagship with Mirror Riker, who does the action doubling up effect, Jen Sisko to disable stuff, Brunt to hand out aux power, Garrick to enhance captain skill. That's kind of the gist of the Regent's flagship. And then he's also got the assimilated Burrell with the Borg Queen that gives out extra actions, and Drex for quality.
Which was very important because of the Admiral he took.
Yes, and that is Admiral Worf to give an extra action to that assimilated Burrell.
Mm-hmm.
Made it quite interesting to give that extra attack.
Yeah, no, was it an extra action or is it an extra attack?
It's an extra attack for an action.
Yes, that's right. Not only that, but that attack can be used, and when defending against that, you don't get a lot of the modifiers that you would normally get in a defense, so it was a very tricky setup, but it definitely paid off for him.
Yeah.
At least coming up to that point. Once it faced off against my list, I kind of had the tools at hand to take it down, but it was still just nightmarish. Luckily, I took out the supporting ship every matchup just first time, so it didn't get an actual attack off after the bonus action attacks, but still absolutely devastating to face if you can't wipe it off the board basically immediately.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. From my experience watching you and what the folks will see once those camera games get up there, you had a very good grasp on how to handle tactics, how to go about dissecting a fleet and pick off the parts that they needed.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to remove the resources available to your opponent, whether that's key ships, certain upgrades, or just the maneuverability. If you can kind of back them into a corner, make them bump, or kind of manipulate them out of their strong suits, then the match should go better for you than if you hadn't.
Should is the key word there.
You always have to include that, since you never know what can happen when you decide to make a certain maneuver.
Let's talk a little bit about your list right now.
Okay. Do we want to go right into the list I actually took to the tournament, or start with the sort of genesis behind it?
Let's start with what you brought, and then let's go back to where it started from. I think that'll
sounds reasonable.
Give people more of an idea of how it got there.
Okay. What I actually took with me into the tournament is based largely around the Borg Scout Cube. This bad boy is what I wanted to survive. I've faced off against it as just an immovable object so many times, and with magnetic charges, it's pretty offensive in its own right as well. So it starts with the Scout Cube 255. I thought that getting a little bit of extra defensive dice might be useful, and so that's the Scout Cube I chose, especially since there aren't any upgrades that I really think I can afford to lose on this ship either, so I didn't necessarily want the 608.
Right, and we'll get to that, but yeah.
Meanwhile, we've also got the Captain Jean-Luc Picard, which was not necessarily my first choice, but eventually I decided that we kind of needed him since I needed an extra crew slot, which I was going to fill with 2nd of 5, in order to mess with my opponent's upgrades should they choose something really nasty that I needed to deal with, such as Unimatrix shielding, which would have demolished my list just because of my heavy Borg presence.
Yeah, should mention this is Picard Skill 8, the one from the Enterprise E, not Picard 9.
A little bit of Picard hate, a little bit of quality on those already fantastic magnetic charges, and a little bit of extra defense dice, but he does run into the problem of if he's facing multiple factions, such as with blind boosters, he's not necessarily working at his full capacity.
No, but still, typically the boosters aren't the biggest threat, and you're able to focus on at least something that is going to be the critical juncture.
Yes, I handily agree. I'm still glad I brought him. I'm just saying that it's not necessarily the best it can be when you've got bonus ships in the mix.
Oh, I
Or
totally
even if your
agree.
opponent isn't building faction pure, which Todd was, though Madrid kind of kicked Jean-Luc right off. But again, let's continue on with the build.
Yeah.
For my Borg upgrade, I took the dispersion field. I thought anything that my opponent wanted to do to my ship was probably going to be pretty nasty, since I basically need all the upgrades in effect in order to make the most of it, and reducing my opponent's ability to scan away my defense dice is also pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Coming back in with the defensive focus, I took the tech improved deflector screens. It's a lot of points, but on a ship that's already rolling a ton of defense dice, adding a little bit of extra bulk to that on 4 shields is very handy and can really increase the survivability you've got at your disposal.
And it's nice to just say, you know what, that crit you rolled? No.
Yeah, no, I don't really think that's something I want you to have, so you're not going to have it.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned earlier, of course, we've got the weapon as the magnetometric guided charge. Absolutely fantastic weapon. It doesn't need quality. If you can use Jean-Luc hate as well as the natural conversion of a battle stations into a crit, then the 3 dice are basically hitting 2 out of 3 almost every single time. And since that's the same weapons value as the primary weapons, it's basically all the actions you'll ever need to be taking. Just keep re-enabling this, keep punching away. Your opponent gets no dice. You're just in a war of attrition. And with that 360 degree range 1 to 3, it's very hard to deal with that punching away turn after turn.
Yeah.
And to top it all off, we have the William T. Riker that gives me extra defensive dice and converts some of my battle stations into the little evade results that are so handy, especially on a only defensive value of 6 on this cube. So every defensive die that I can get to roll and evade is that much better.
So that's a 46-point Scout 255. And
it would have been 49 points, but I actually took the officer exchange program to get a little bit of a discount on Picard and Riker there, because that just would have been way too expensive otherwise.
Yeah, and that let you make your other ship more valuable.
Yes. Speaking of the other ship, we have the assimilated vessel 64758. I originally was looking at this ship as kind of a backup, just heavy hitter, since we only have 3 dice coming off the Scout Cube every turn. I wanted something that was going to have a lot more punch to it, and the assimilated vessel seemed like a Borg ship that had reasonable primary weapons value and the coveted 180-degree arc, which I thought was going to be very important in the coming tournament because you can squeeze off a lot more shots when taking more aggressive maneuvers if you can sidle up next to your opponent and kind of remain out of your opponent's arc. It's also reasonably defensive by being able to have the just 9 defensive value and set evade dice to evade faces by spending drone tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Which, believe me, came in so handy as I went through the tournament. I don't think the assimilated vessel ever died, except for in my final matchup, so it definitely paid for itself in full. That named ability is so much more valuable than you would really consider, especially when you've got a captain such as the Borg Queen that has the drone tokens available to keep paying for that round after round. Speaking of, I did take the Borg Queen as my captain, just because I thought that I was going to need a lot more actions. I wanted to make sure that I had reasonable quality on this vessel, since getting 5 dice with max quality can be pretty devastating, and so I made sure that I was going to be able to take 2 actions, and while the Borg don't get battle stations, I decided to supplement that by taking Mr. Spock as one of my crew. That little Federation include on the Borg, once more making use of that resource card from earlier, and making sure that I get perfect quality by being able to take the target lock as a free action using the Borg Queen's ability, and then take the scan as a regular action with Mr. Spock to convert all my battle stations into hit results. So now I'm rolling 5 dice at max quality against 1 less defense die, and it's just a very offensive setup there. Very useful to have on your side. Rounding it off, we needed to spend those extra points somewhere. I took Data Node as my final tech slot, just because, again, I really wanted this ship to survive. It's not defensive in any way, shape, or form. Its only real recourse is to kind of soak hits, and so by making my opponent roll less attack dice, I thought that I could make it last that much longer, and clearly that paid off for me, since I think there were 2 games in which I actually had the assimilated vessel go down to a single hull value left. And so any of those 3 attack dice that weren't rolled may have been the killing blow, should I not have had Data Node available to me.
You really opened my eyes on Data Node. You changed a lot of people's perspectives on that the named assimilated ship.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's underrated. Just by looking at it, I didn't even think it was going to do as well as it managed to do for me. But again, if you've got the drone tokens, that ability to just ignore hits every single round, especially if you can get an extra defensive die from range 3, I was blown away by how useful that was.
Yeah, I think, well, what you're saying, you even surprised yourself.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And that speaks to something, is sometimes you take a list thinking it's going to do 1 or 2 things really well. And then it ends up maybe doing that one thing really well, that second thing not so good, but then it ends up doing a third thing that you didn't think it was going to do, and that benefits you.
Very much so. And having the Klingon booster actually helped a whole lot as well, since it's kind of a mini assimilated vessel. It's very similar stats-wise and can kind of churn out very similar damage numbers. So I was very impressed by that's performance as well, since that's kind of the one part of your build you can't really account for. Being able to make good use out of the booster really helped me.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. So I've got to ask at this point, if you had to change anything about your build, would you? And if you would, what would you change?
I'm going to have to say yes. I had an idea with my first setup that I think works very well. And you rapscallion, you convinced me out of it. I'm not necessarily holding that against you, but I am definitely going to say that you convinced me to bring along Second of 5, and there was never a time that I really thought to myself, wow, Second of 5 really earned its spot on this team. I understand its utility. in case I did ever come up against something like Unimatrix shielding, but because nothing of that ilk ever really popped its head, I never got a reason to use Second of 5, and it kind of took apart one of the combos that I'd kind of been planning the build around. I had originally set up my Scout Cube to use the Federation Captain Ronald Moore, who, with my Officer Exchange program, comes in as absolutely free, and because of that, I can also use his ability to disable him to get a free battle stations whenever I want, a little bit of extra quality, should the moment arise, and in doing so, that would give Riker an extra defense die and double the quality fixing, bumping me up to the same full 5 defense dice that I would get from John Luke Haight, as well as Riker being there, as well as a little bit of extra quality, being able to get those battle stations results into evade phases that much more often. And while the cube only died twice in the entire tournament, once in one of the earlier rounds and once against Todd, I still think that that would have been a great way to save points. All I would have missed out on would be the Picard Hate ability to set dice against a certain faction, which did come in handy, but I think there were other ways I could have tossed a bit more quality in there. And I just never came away thinking that Second of 5 really earned its spot.
I will toss out the notion, and this is something I've thought more about. If you had used Second of 5 against his Riemann Warbird to take out his interface generator,
I'm not going to lie, the thought has occurred to me ex post facto, and it's one of the many decisions I think that I missed out on in the moment.
Yeah, and that's, again, that's your 6th match of the day. You're not used to running Second of 5. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. Maybe you would have been more comfortable going a different way. I will say Picard 8 probably helped you a lot because of the high captain skill.
That is also something that I rarely consider. I still have difficulties kind of calculating exactly how much that captain skill is worth, but as I mentioned before, there were 3 or 4 matches where I managed to wipe something off the board in the very first round of shooting, so clearly having the magnetometric charges available as kind of an alpha strike was worth something. And
oh yeah.
Maybe I am definitely undervaluing that captain skill, but I'm still looking at Second of 5 just thinking like, what could I have done with those points?
And I understand that. And maybe that's where the matchups came in. And the matchups you got meant that Second of 5 wasn't needed. And I think Natasha reported very similar things. She was going, well, this wasn't needed. And maybe that's where the meta was. And I know you tried to use Second of 5 against Daniel Shuttleknot, but he had costs on there for protection.
I started looking at what I could take off that big, stinking flagship of his, but it wasn't going to happen since I only get 1 Second of 5 before he's discarded, and Koss is just going to soak all that up. He's basically a non-Borg dispersion field.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same text, except Koss doesn't give you scan protection.
Yes, and believe me, that scan protection was handy, considering that the whole plan with the cube was roll a ton of defense dice and just never die while plinking away that magnetometric charges. So that worked out.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it just came down to ideas. I'm glad that you ran what you did. I think you might have had similar results if you had run what you're proposing to run. There's ultimately no way of knowing.
Exactly. I don't want to necessarily make decisions about these cards based on what happened when there very much could have been scenarios where Second of 5 could have been clutch. Because again, a single Unimatrix shielding ruins my day because I'm 2/3 Borg. Getting those extra defenses against Borg could just devastate me.
Right. Somebody runs Unimatrix shielding, now your Meg charges are basically worthless. So, you know, that's the fun. That's the stuff you have to consider. And I remember our talks going in, and I'm like, well, maybe somebody runs this, and then you're in trouble. And I think the only person that ever ran it was Natasha. Maybe somebody else had Unimatrix shielding. I don't know. I haven't seen it in my list analysis, but yeah, it was not a very popular card, and I thought it would be because of how much I've heard about it.
Well, the fact that it didn't show up against me is definitely something I'm going to count in the win category, because again, I just would rather not have to face that.
Still, you did well. You knew how to manage the stuff that you came across, and kudos.
Thank you very much. Again, I am very happy with how I performed. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I came as a shock to just about everybody watching or playing, including myself, and that's a pretty great feeling to come into a tournament with a list you built with just a little bit of help and take it all the way to the top. Even if I didn't win the championship there at the WizKids Open, I still took it to second place, and that alone proves that I've got something going for me.
Yeah, I will say that I'm a bit more afraid of you in our local OPs now.
As well you should be, because I'm planning nasty, nasty things for this up and coming OP, but I'll let you discover that as we go.
Oh, I'm well aware. You know what the good thing is, though? We've been playing some good games, and I want competition. That's the way to go. You want good players playing, and the thing I loved is 4 of our 6 regulars were playing in regionals. I was judging it, and one guy's from pretty far out of town. So, hey, that was a good turnout, and I was really glad that our area represented itself well.
Oh, yeah. No, I saw a lot of friendly faces. Are you sure it was only... Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting you weren't playing.
Exactly.
I was thinking I saw at least 5 of us there, but no, you were judging. You don't count. Humbug.
All right, I'm going to get you out on this. You played 6 matches. Which one was your favorite? If you could only replay one of those matches, not to change anything, but to relive that match, which one would you pick?
If I was going to play a matchup to relive the matchup, I would definitely pick the first time I came up against Alex as the third round of Swiss as the match to replay. Alex had a lot of really great energy. He was a fantastic opponent to play against. The fight was absolutely grueling, but in the best possible way. It felt really satisfying to win. And again, he was just a wonderful opponent to come up against. And so even though I had to play him again immediately, it was still the most fun match I had at the entire tournament. And I'm really glad I got the chance to play him.
All right. There you have it, folks. Thank you, Craig. Again, congratulations on second place in California Regionals.
Thank you so much. Thank you also for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Glad to have you. All right. Another big thanks to Craig for doing that. Really appreciate having him on. Great to have more perspectives than just champions. And, in keeping with that vein, we're going to kick it over to Dan. You know him from Ready Room, but he came in number 3 in Modesto, and he's going to talk about his experiences. But first, he's going to do a preview for Doomsday Machine. I know some people are already playing it, but business has to go on Warp Core Breach, so it's there. When he talks in his regional list, he means going forward 2, back 2, not forward 1, back 2. He got mixed up there. But he asked me to throw in the correction there. So, we're going to kick it over to Dan, and then we'll be back for more champion interviews.
Welcome to the Ready Room. My name's Daniel, and I'll be your host for this segment of the show. Now today's going to be a little different. We're going to go to the Ready Room to discuss 2 topics. 1, the Doomsday Machine OP, and 2, a Modesto Regional review. To kick it off, orders just came in from Starfleet to intercept the Doomsday Machine. The setup is to place the Doomsday Machine token in the play area, center from north to south, so that the rear of the token touches the edge of the play area, and the front of the token faces the center of the play area. Each player, in turn, starting with the highest ranked player, places 2 objective tokens in the play area. These tokens cannot be placed within range 1 of any edge of the play area or within range 1 to 3 of any other token, including the Doomsday Machine. The objective tokens represent the debris from the planets that were destroyed. Treat these as obstacles. If the Doomsday Machine token overlaps an objective token, remove the objective token from the play area and repair 2 damage to the Doomsday Machine token. The Doomsday Machine token, or DMT, which I'll start calling it that, has a front and rear of the token. The front of the token has a guide and the forward firing arc. The rounded end of the token is the rear. The DMT is considered an enemy ship and has the following stats: primary weapon of 8, agility 0, hull 10, 0 shields. Whenever the DMT targets a ship, remove any blue target lock tokens beside the DMT and the corresponding red target lock token from the ship that was previously targeted. Then, place a blue target lock token beside the DMT and the corresponding red target lock token beside the ship that attacked. Note, these tokens cannot be used to reroll dice and do not have any other function except to show which ship the DMT is targeting. Each turn at the end of the activation phase, after all ships have moved, if the DMT does not already have a ship targeted, it targets the nearest ship within range 1 to 3. Then, the DMT must move towards the ship it has targeted. The opposing player of the ship chooses a maneuver with a speed of 1, straight bank or turn, and moves the DMT using the forward guide of the token towards the ship as follows. Place the chosen maneuver template and the guide on front of the DMT. Place a second maneuver template at the end of the chosen maneuver template so that it sits flush against it. Then, while holding the second maneuver template firmly in place, remove the chosen maneuver template while still holding the second maneuver template firmly in place. Slide the DMT across the play area until the end of the second maneuver template fits fully in front of the guide, then remove the second maneuver template. If the DMT executes a maneuver that would cause its final position to overlap the base of a ship, the DMT moves back along the maneuver template as normal. If the overlap ship has a hull 7 or less, that ship suffers 2 damage. The DMT cannot perform actions. The DMT can be attacked and destroyed, but has the following special abilities. Any attack that does not strike the front edge of the DMT does not damage the DMT. The DMT does not sustain critical damage. Treat all critical damage inflicted on the DMT as normal damage. When the DMT is attacked, it targets the attacking ship. At the end of each phase, the DMT repairs 2 damage to its hull. During the combat phase of every round, the DMT will attack as follows. The DMT always attacks and has a 90-degree firing arc. The DMT will attack the ship that it has targeted, if possible. If the targeted ship is not within its forward firing arc and within range 1 to 3, it will target the attack the nearest ship within range 1 to 3 in its forward firing arc. This attack is considered to be made with a primary weapon and rage bonuses apply. Whenever a player is defending against the DMT, the opposing player rolls the DMT attack dice. Whenever a ship targeted by the DMT is destroyed, remove the blue target lock token beside the DMT and the corresponding red target lock from the ship that was destroyed. At the end of the game, whoever inflicts the 10th damage to the DMT token gains plus 20 fleet points. So wow, there are a lot of rules to this scenario. But it is quite like Cold War OP3, because you can attack your opponent or attack the objective, which is the DMT. Now the DMT may be kind of hard to destroy because you have to get at the right angle right in front of it, and if you can target it, it can target you. Unlike Cold War OP3, it does not have 16 durability, instead it only has 10. With that being said, I've only come up with one strategy for this event, partly because I want to get to talk about regionals. The strategy is a quick alpha strike. You're going to want ships with a lot of attack dice or torpedoes or something with a lot of attack dice, and you're going to want to get your ships with high captain skills and get right in front of the DMT token. Fire at it right away, use a lot of modifying cards so you can try to take it out before your opponents. It's not too hard to do 10 damage, especially with 3 ships. Not good enough for you? Get Voyager and transphasic torpedoes with Warp. That way you could reroll, just do as much damage as you can. To slow down your opponent, you could also use Faked Message or Lure just to make sure that they don't get any shot at the DMT that round. Now don't forget, you still have your opponent to worry about, so you're going to need a lot of durability on your ships. Maybe get more evade dice so you can take a few hits from them while trying to attack the DMT. Or just get repair cards so you can take that shots from your opponent while you're attacking the DMT, then switch your focus. I'm sorry for rushing that out of the way, but I really want to get to this new topic, regionals. Now I just finished competing at the Modesto Regionals and had a lot of fun. I got to meet David, Tucker, new faces, and old faces. Overall, I guess we had the most people so far with 19 competing. Out of the 19, I took third with a ship that no one really expected. What ship did I fly, you may ask? Well, no, not a bioship. No, not a scimitar. In fact, I ran the tiny prize. And to add on to that, it was a Fednot, which I was the only one to bring, surprisingly. So, my resource was Protocol. I was running the USS Enterprise with Tavik as my captain for the extra crew slot, Elizabeth Shelby, Eric Motts, Sakona, Quark, Arsenal, dorsal weapons array, or phaser array, Type 8 phasers, upgraded phasers, systems upgrade, and enhanced hull plating. And under Quark was multi-adaptive shields. My shuttle was Quark's treasure, with Core as my captain, the younger Core, William T. Riker, Hood, Tom Paris, Lee Nollis, Agmacht Egan, the +1 evade dice for Dominion, Koss, and Cargo Hold. Sadly, out of all the blinds, I had to pick the Vulcan, so I put Tavin, or I took a basic Dekur class with Tavin, Solon, and Victos Kator, the talent, and I was 3 points under build. The build was meant to counter almost anything I could run into, and it did just that. I was rolling 5 evade dice with battle station conversion and a reroll of a blank, and 5 attack dice with rerolls on all of them if I needed to, with a battle station. Multi-adaptive shielding protected me from cloaked mines, or any mines. Cost protected me from anyone trying to discard my upgrades. Lee Nollis protected my captain from Gul Dukat, or Gul Madred I mean. And when I lost all my shields, boom, enhanced hull plating kicks in, knocking off 2 damage. With Protocol, I got a battle stations for evading and attacking, and with the tiny prize maneuver dial, I could just do a 2 back, 1 straight. No matter how many Ox tokens I had, I could still do my actions. My first 2 rounds in the Swiss match went pretty well, with a complete wipe taking out my opponent's ships, and losing my Vulcan ship, I think once. My third round, however, did not go too well. I went up against Sam with his Voyager, Prometheus, and Species 8472 build. The thing that really beat me was the fact that he had the Omega pilot and dealt a crit to my hull, and the rest of the crits that he gave were all very affecting my ship's abilities, like -1 evade die, -1 attack die, and with Ox tokens, I couldn't get rid of those at all. In the end, he managed to totally wipe out my fleet, with me only taking out his Voyager. I managed to get in the top 8 bracket despite my loss. Once in, my next opponent was Andrew, who had 2 Excelsior classes, the Hood and Excelsior, with quantum torpedoes, and Jean-Luc Picard and Spock. He too had the bioship line. Due to my Enterprise's ability to take Ox tokens and still do actions, I managed to keep going 2 straight, 1 forward, 2 straight, 1 forward, and started picking off his ships. I'll admit I got lucky in a way, because he did not use his Omega bioship captain when a few times he had the chance to. The problem was he did not have enough quality with the quantum torpedoes. Therefore, my ship, with a lot of evade dice, managed to evade it. In the end, I completely wiped out the fleet. After that win, I was guaranteed to be in the top 4, and I was on my way to attempting to get first place. That was all stopped when I ran right into Craig Neal's fleet. He was running a super defensive scout cube with mag charges and an assimilated Galor class with the Klingon booster. The ability to not roll any evade dice really killed my fleet, and he managed to take out my shields and do crits to my hull. The enhanced hull plating may have canceled 2 of his hits, but then just 1 crit going through sabotaged a lot for me. I tried to take out his cube early, but it had just so many evade dice, way more than my ships did. As a result, he wiped out my fleet. It's funny because at the time, I kept thinking about attacking, when what I should have done is double evade. That way, he would only deal 1 damage to me, taking out my shields, and enhanced hull plating kicks in, and I'll be able to negate all the crits that he does. Yes, he had 2 more ships attacking me, but at least I roll evade dice against them, and my chances of surviving were pretty high. Plus, I had core, so it wasn't like I wasn't getting quality at all. I went for attacking rather than defending when my ship had the ability to do both. So Craig Neal, if you're listening to this, all I want to say is I want a rematch. Well, with that loss, I definitely wasn't getting first. At the time, I thought I was getting 4th place. That's when I was told that there's going to be a 3rd place match, and my opponent was Sam again, the one who completely destroyed my fleet. This time, however, I managed to turn the tide and completely destroy his fleet, winning 3rd place. He managed to do a lot of damage to my Vulcan ship, and some to my Enterprise. The difference this time is my Vulcan got to fire. Most of my matches, my Vulcan was just destroyed before I even got a shot. With my Enterprise and Vulcan, both targeting as Prometheus with quality, we managed to destroy it right away, taking out his Admiral Forrest, making him lose the ability to do those extra maneuvers. After that, it was just a matter of the bioship and his Voyager. With his ability to use Mile O'Brien from the starter twice, he took out my enhanced hull plating, but I managed to undisable it just in time. In the end, it was just my Enterprise and his Voyager, and the Enterprise won the day. Both matches with Sam and my match with Craig will be on the Shipyard YouTube channel. In the end, it was a lot of fun, and it was especially fun to prove that you don't need 2 bioships to get the job done. If you have any questions or suggestions for this segment of the podcast, please email us at warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com. I'm very curious to hear on what you guys like, dislike, or what I could do better in this segment. Well, you have the ships, you have the cards, now make it so. I'll see you next time when we get into the classical movie events at To the Ready Room. End transmission.
All right. Thank you, Dan. That shuttle knot was mighty impressive, and I had money on you for the finals. Figurative money, people. We don't bet on Star Trek. But it was a cool list. I loved seeing it. I loved seeing it work. It was an awesome list, and tons of great potential still with what shuttles can do. Kind of goes to show you that maybe the 50-point limit needs to go away, because you can just make it happen with a shuttle. Maybe a topic for another day, but food for thought. Now, we're going to go to Todd, who won California. So, that will conclude things in California. All right, I am joined here with Todd, who won California Regionals. Congratulations, Todd, on your big win.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And we call it a big win because, of course, California had the largest turnout of regionals.
Yes, we did. It was a great showing. Lots of great people, lots of great players.
Only thing I wish we had was more of a turnout from Southern California.
Yeah, thought we would get a little bit more from SoCal area, yeah, for sure. And we got a big following out in the Bay Area too. We had some people show up, but we were expecting more there. So and honestly, even could have been bigger, but schedules and life conflicts and stuff just happen. Good turnout nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think some of that was running it on a Sunday instead of a Saturday.
Yeah, could have been that as well. Yeah, most OPs in the NorCal area usually are Saturdays.
Yeah, because I think if you run it on a Saturday, then when it runs late, you're not worried about driving back home that night. You can stay overnight, and then you get back home on Sunday rather than trying to get back home Monday for work and
absolutely
stuff
yeah.
like that.
That's a big key with the Southern California people too. Because it's a long trip, and if they're up here on a Sunday night late, got work on Monday, whatnot. Yeah, that's a big factor.
Yeah, but that's the logistics. So your list, very solid list. Of course, it's solid. You won the tournament. Not without its flaws, because you lost round 1. So can you speak to your mindset? Where was your head at? You come in, you lose round 1. What's going through your head?
Yeah. It was tough. It was a close match. Good opponent, very down to the wire. I was kicking myself with some of the moves I made, and my dice were not going well with the mines. I missed more often than I hit. I think I had 3 out of 5 were complete whiffs, and that's just the way the dice go. But it doesn't certainly help you. And yeah, it was right down to the wire, and he managed to kill my Riemann on the last turn. It was one of those ones we had started doing maneuvers, and time was called, so we had the round to finish out, and yeah, he just ended up popping me, and I think I lost like 79 to like 42. So, yeah, coming out of that match, it was tough because, my mentality, I've never played in regionals or any kind of event like that before. My mentality is the OP mentality where you got 3 rounds, and, if it's a big turnout, and you lose, you're going to be in a tough spot, unless you get some help. So going in round 2, I was like, oh, this might not be so great. It was one of those things where, after round 2, I had a strong victory, and sitting and chatting with some of the local guys that I play with in Santa Clara, just talking, and it's like, oh yeah, there is a cut to top 8. So, losing one match is not the end of the world. At that point, I was like, all right, you're still in this, just got to keep fighting. And yeah, so after the first round was tough though. It was a blow for sure.
Right. So then you end up winning round 2, winning round 3. You're 2-1. You've got 300 some fleet points. Mm-hmm. That gets you the 6th seed.
Yep.
Which was probably fortuitous. You get the 7 or 8, you're up against the guys that are 3-0, 390.
Yep.
And that would have been rough.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was positioning wise, once I finished out the first 3 rounds, I knew I was in a pretty good shot, because I had, like you said, I had the second and third rounds were complete victories, so I got 130 in each of those. So I was sitting at about 302 with 2-1. So I knew it was pretty good. And yeah, like you said, got the 6th. It was a great, it was, I don't want to say great, but it was good, like you say, because you're not running up against those top guys. And I know there was at least one player that went 2-0 with 2 total victories and still didn't make it. So I was fortunate to make it in, even as I was,
Yeah, we had a 9 seed that was 2-1, 260.
Right.
And it was just down to his first match. He lost, got nothing. 8 was also 2-1, 260, but it came down to they actually played each other.
Right.
And took that as like, hey, head-to-head plus strength of schedule. Yeah, that's going to win out over a die roll-off in my book.
It worked out perfectly because, they were both, like you said, 2-1, 260, and then they'd played each other. So, it seems like the natural thing is, well, who won that? Like you said, head-to-head. And, for me, I was fortunate that I did get some points in that first round because that had ended up being a boost for me, to get something, and it ended up carrying me in there.
Right, so that speaks to some strategy in regionals. Always try to get points.
Yeah, come away with something, because one loss isn't necessarily a death blow to your chances of getting to top 8 for sure.
Right, 2 losses is going to take you out.
Yeah.
Unless it's a super duper small turnout.
Yeah.
With 19 people, you had to go 2-1. Mm-hmm. And you had to get a bunch of points.
Yeah, and I was just, second and third matches, just very fortunate in that my build really worked well, and I was able to just, employ some effective strategy against what I came up against, and always having good dice rolls helps, because that can really tank you against any build if they go south. So, yeah, good strategy, and then some good fortune really carried me on those second and third rounds.
Right, so let's talk a little bit more about strategy.
Mm-hmm.
You bring in the prototype. Yep. With 3 cloaked mines, mm-hmm. and my favorite part of your build, Type 8 phasers. What inspired Type 8 phasers?
Well, it was just, I really love the prototype. The last couple months, I've really come to really appreciate all the stuff it can do. Its maneuverability, its ability to repair, the 3 native tech slots, like you said, to be able to carry in 3 cloak mines without having to slap on a tech slot with something else. And, even Garib's ability you don't get the captain's text that you put under him, but it keeps that skill from getting ripped away from you, which is nice. And the only thing that's really lacking is it's got that 3 natural attack dice. The type 8s were such a great card for 2 points to the feds. There's only 3 cross-faction, and that gives you that 4th die, which really does make a difference. And like I was saying, it's got all whites, so your 2 come about, your 3 come about. You're still able to target lock, scan, get a little bit of quality with the target lock, and make that 4 die shot a little bit more effective. So it really made it a great little harasser that people kind of underestimated. I honestly went in thinking it would be targeted because it had all the mines on it. People want to pop it as soon as possible, so I was trying to get the mines off as soon as I could. But yeah, it did a good job of being a great little harasser for me, yeah.
What I saw of it, and I haven't gone back and edited all the camera footage, but I really liked the way that you deployed it, kept them separate, made sure that you were covering a lot of area with your cloaked mines. It was my strategy, I know, because when they overlap, you're not rolling both sets or however many sets, it's just one. So I know there was Albert that I played against, he ran 2 mines, and his strategy was more to have the mines cover their own area, so there was a decent chance you were going to get whacked by both. But, my strategy was with the 3 was just to kind of spread them out as much as the range 2 really allowed, and then obviously my opponent's ships allowed, to just kind of cut a swath across. So, I'm not rolling 2 sets of mines, but there's just a really big area, an excellent area coverage to get 1, which can be very effective. Just get that big coverage area. Yeah, I know Craig, your opponent in the finals, said his number 1 tactical mistake was running into that minefield. Yeah. I mean, he did a good job of keeping the scout cube out of it. Naturally, kind of had to, but it was greatly maneuverable. But yeah, the other ships coming in, it helped. And it did me throughout the day. Really, it helped soften them up. In the semifinal match too against Sam, it softens them up so it's easier to kill. It really, they're very effective. And that was part of my thinking from a strategy standpoint. I was just like, what is going to give me the best ability to win? That was one of the things I went to. Love them or hate them, they're a really good card, and for what they cost, you really can't beat it. So the other aspect of your build, Riemann Warbird, which is a solid ship, and you bring in Gul Dukat with Gul Madred. So you've got the ability to handle basically any captain you don't like. Yeah, absolutely. It was anybody who's played me, and we've played before, so you know this too. Any of the guys that play me in the Bay Area, they know that is definitely my favorite ship. It has been pretty much since I started playing, and I bring it to the tournaments, OPs more often than not, because like you said, it's a great ship, and it's got amazing hull. It throws 6 dice. It's got great maneuverability for something so big, cloaking. So I really love the ship, and I've of late have really loved that officer exchange program to get Dukat on there, to get a free battle station, which is just crazy. He's only 4 points. And then when you're running that officer exchange has that great thing where you can take an admiral cross faction. He's a point less. So then you're getting Madred for 4 points, which is crazy too, because in a scenario like this, the ability to take out a captain is huge because everybody's bringing their A game, and they're bringing great builds that are going to have these awesome strategies. So to be able to take out like a Picard 8 or a Car, it can really be a big blow. And it helped me in the final match for sure to take out Craig's Picard 8 on that cube with his mag charges in Picard. You're getting that guaranteed crit, and it's just really, really tough to deal with. So me getting rid of Picard on the first try was a huge turn for me as well. Yeah, and Admiral Madred gets around Ready Room, which we saw pop up a bit because people love running Captain Madred because he can be boosted in skill, he can be reused with Lenalis, Goval. But Admiral, you're only getting 1 shot with him, but that's a shot that's getting through everything. Yeah, and I honestly I'd run up against some people in the local Bay Area, like Meta, that had started running Ready Room as a specific, counter to Madred. But then I think the last match in Fremont, which was the weekend before regionals, we looked at, you look close at it and you say, well, it's from a captain or an upgrade, which obviously an admiral is neither. So you're like, wow, that's a real loophole there. So yeah, like you say, you love to boost them up as a captain to make it automatic, but with the admiral, there's no way to stop it for good. The blind, you pull the Aldara. Yes. And what's your thought process there? How do you feel when you get that ship? Well, I felt good, to be honest, and relieved because
initially I thought I had a 50% chance of getting a Bajoran blind, which, nobody wants to come in and pull. As a player in that regionals, I think everybody in that room is hoping they pull that bio ship. But, failing that, you're really hoping you come away with anything but the Bajoran. So to pull the Eldara, which is, the Galler class is a great ship, 4 dice, attack, solid frame, great arc, and some good cards to go along with it. Some really cool cards. I liked that, I think it was like high energy subspace field, the one that you move in and you don't really take an action with the intention of using that card, and he lets you steal a token, like there's a battle stations evade or scan from your opponent, which is pretty cool. So yeah, great ship. I was very happy with it as a blind.
Plus, it completed the thematic of your build, the Dominion Romulan Officer Exchange Program.
Yeah, I saw that. It pretty much. Yeah, you take away Type 8 phasers and I think attack pattern Omega, and it's all Dominion and Romulan stuff, which is pretty cool. It's nice to have like a little, theme to it, be almost, not quite faction pure, but theme pure, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, Type 8 is one you can justify as, hey, we're just boosting the phasers.
Yeah, I know you guys have talked about in a Warp Core breach that, that probably should just be a generic, 3 points or whatever.
A universal upgrade.
Yeah, for whatever faction, if you want to give your ship a little bit more of a punch.
Stuff like that's all in good fun.
Absolutely.
So, I gotta ask, has it truly sunk in that you're a regional champion?
I think it sinks in more and more day by day, because, I left and, you're elated, but you're kind of like, wow, that actually just happened. It's like a wild ride. It's a long day, but it's a whirlwind too. So, the next day and today, as you see, a little bit more here and there on Facebook, you're like, oh wow, I actually won. They're talking about my stuff. Like that's, usually I'm one to just kind of peruse the boards and I keep an eye on anything, but I'm not usually active in the discussion. But to see my stuff put to the forefront it's pretty cool and pretty exciting and kind of humbling and grateful for it.
To have people sit there and go, oh yeah, I like what he did there. Have them dissecting every little thing that you've done.
Yeah, it's pretty
learning
cool.
from it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've listened to you guys, you and Tucker for a while, so it was great to meet you. I mean, I met you before, but it was great to meet Tucker as well, and you know what I mean, to be involved in that whole discussion. As I got into this game, I think this past June, so it hasn't even been quite a year yet. Once I started falling in love with it, I kind of just ran right to podcasts, and at first I hooked on to State of the Federation and just started chewing through back episodes of that, and then once you start up Warp Core Breach, there's just been a weekly subscriber to that, so it's kind of cool to hear about all the regionals past and then be actually involved in it and then hell win it. It's just crazy. Absolutely amazing and just so grateful.
Well, that's awesome to hear. It's something that proves how wonderful this community is.
Absolutely.
We had 21 people in that room, 19 playing.
Yep.
Who love Star Trek Attack Wing.
Definitely.
And the energy that was there, the excitement, the intensity, but the fun that was there was just something I've never experienced.
Yeah.
It re-energized me.
Right. It's hard not to get pumped up when you go to that kind of thing. It's nice. I liked it. It was nice because, I see a lot of the guys I play with in the Bay Area at some various venues. And then, I see some Hillmar people where you play out in Gate Play that I've been there once, but I've met them. But then to just see everybody kind of in the same area, in the same, spot, all playing in one tournament, everybody kind of keeps in touch through the Facebook group and, online. But it's cool to see everybody all in one place.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, any plans for nationals and or worlds?
Yeah, I think so. I would like to. I've once we get a feel on where it's going to be and when it's going to be, I'm going to do my best to make it. I don't want to say 100%, but if I can get there, I'd love to be there. I love playing with these people that are just the higher end, highest of this game. It was fun playing against people that are just master builders and master strategists and great players. So I enjoy the challenge, and whenever I get an opportunity to do that, I'm going to jump at it. So yeah, hopefully both.
Well, I'd love to have you back as national champion or world champion. That would be awesome to have that sitting in California.
Oh, yeah. Believe me, I love that too. Yeah, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Obviously, there's a lot of great players and, there's a lot involved in the game, but hey, I wouldn't mind it either. I'm always happy to come on and talk to you. I love the podcast, and it's always a great time listening to it.
Yeah. Now, I know from some of our other discussions, and this is kind of circling back, but you've kind of proclaimed yourself not as the best builder of the lot. You say that, hey, lots of other people have come up with the killer combos, the killer strategies, but can you speak to your strength in this game?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you hit it on the head there. I like to think of myself as a pretty good builder, but, I know there's some great players that they come up with that just killer combo that, they'll come into a tournament and just blindside everybody. Like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize you could do that, and you're like, wow. So I don't really put myself in that class. I think, more my strength is, when I get into the game, into the nitty gritty of it, I like to think that I'm good at continuing to make good decisions, good moves, good actions, and to just kind of keep grinding it out when you're in there and stuff goes wrong and your plan is smashed to bits. I really think truly that my greatest strength is when, something goes truly wrong, to keep fighting, to keep moving just one move, one action, one attack at a time, just keep within yourself so you don't get kind of overwhelmed by, wow, I just lost my scimitar in like one shot. And, now I'm looking at 3 ships and my main hitter is gone. At that point, it happened to me in the semis against Sam. You just got to take it one move at a time, one action at a time, and just target the ships and keep moving. You know what I mean? And not hang your head and just give up at that point. You can keep fighting. I think that's my strength, is to when it all goes wrong, to try to keep it together and, at the very least, make it a really tough win for my opponent, and then, hopefully pull it out as a victory for myself.
I like that. So to put it in Star Trek terms, what you're saying is you have to adapt.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to adapt on the fly to the situation, for sure.
Well, and I think that's great advice for anybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Make it tough.
Yeah, at the very least, yeah.
Make your opponent get a tough win.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going to take that win because their dice go cold, your dice go hot, and anything can happen.
Yeah, you know what? Make them work for it, and it's, make them make the perfect move. You know what I mean? As long as you're making what you need to do, maybe they make a mistake and you can capitalize. Honestly, that's what happened on the one match we played. I was pretty much getting my butt handed to me, and I happened, you know what I mean? It was just hanging in there, and it just happened to break my way. So it's a good advice, I think, for anybody is, just never give up and always just stay in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is good stuff.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Todd, for your time. Really appreciate it. And we hope to hear more from you in the future.
No problem, David. Thank you for having me on. It's great talking to you this evening. All right, sir. Have a great night.
And another big thanks to Todd for that. It was awesome to have him around. Great guy in person. Great interview. Love the energy. We actually had to record that interview twice because he had a recording device error that happened as soon as he hit stop. He lost the entire recording. That's kind of stuff that's going to happen from time to time. But we still had a great interview. Still enjoyed talking to him, and he's good people. Now we're gonna take things up north and talk to Hugo, who played up in Washington. So let's hear that interview. Here with me, Hugo Torres. He won the regional up in Lacey, Washington. Congratulations, Hugo.
Thanks, David. Pleasure to be on your show. I've been a big fan, and it's kind of neat to be a part of it now.
Oh, you flatter me. I always love hearing people are fans of the show, and heard so much of that at regionals, and I'm like, wow.
No, you're kind of a mini celebrity in the field, and it's kind of neat to have people in Attack Wing who contribute, from a fan base perspective and who do reviews. And I remember watching all your previews of the boosters, which kind of helped me prepare for regionals because I actually don't have any of the boosters, or didn't have any of the boosters until I won. So it was kind of neat to see the previews and know what I was going to expect.
Well, and now you have the full set.
Now I have the full set, thankfully.
Let's jump in. So, booster, which one did you pull?
I pulled the Klingon ship, the one with Duras.
Yeah, the Burok.
Which, I have to say, I wasn't too impressed by it when I saw the preview. It didn't look like, it didn't look like a bad ship, but, you obviously look at something like the Species 8472 ship, and everything pales in comparison.
Yeah.
But the ship actually is pretty tough because of the crew member card, who can disable 2 shields instead of losing them. Gave the ship a lot of survivability, more survivability than I expected it to have.
Right, and even like Dishonorable Tactics isn't a bad card to have in terms of flexibility. I don't know if you took that on your ship or not, but
yeah, no, I saw that, and it actually synergized well with my build, which had a lot of upgrades on one of my ships. So I always had an upgrade on a friendly ship to disable for Dishonorable Tactics. So it was kind of a nice little, not a full-fledged alpha strike, but a nice little powerful boost strike whenever I needed it with free rerolls, which ended up being pretty helpful in a couple games.
Well, and Tucker and I were talking about this at our judge table moments and going, hey, any booster that gives you 8-9 durability, 4 attack dice, it's going to help you.
Yes.
It's certainly not hurting.
Yes. No, and it was facing down some of the other ships that people pulled that I thought were better. As the tournament went on, I was more and more glad that I had pulled a Klingon. I wasn't really excited or disappointed when I got it, but by the end of the tournament, I definitely realized I had lucked out with a very good blind.
Well, that's great to hear. So let's keep on talking about the rest of your list. I know you were running a Valjean, which surprised me, pleasantly surprised me.
I think it surprised everyone. People were kind of giving me double takes at the tournament that I pulled out this little ship that hasn't seen any competitive play as far as I've been able to tell.
Yeah, not too much on the big stage. And I know I've had conversations with people about the Valjean being this cool ship where you can run a bunch of like little pieces and disable them to get those evades and stuff like that. But can you speak to kind of what was the origin behind bringing the Valjean? What was your thought process of why it would be a good ship? Like what you thought you would be facing that made it a good part of your build?
Yeah, no problem. Well, the first piece of my build that I came up with was actually the bioship side. I looked at all the cards in the game, and to me, the card that's really stands out to me, besides Cloak Mines, which I think is just crazily underpriced. It's probably the most underpriced card in the whole game.
Yeah.
The other one that really stands out to me is Biological Technology, which I think people appreciate, but you don't see played too often. But here's a card that can boost a 6 attack ship with 2 agility to 8 attack and or 4 agility, and it's passive. It just is passive. You don't have to take actions. You don't have to do anything. It just kind of builds up every turn, and then you can spend it when you need it. And if you don't need it, if your opponent whiffs an attack roll, you save it on defense. If you're attacking a fighter, you don't spend it on offense. So to me, biotechnology was a card that really stood out. And I was like, I want to do a build with that bioship because an 8-4, 5-6 ship to me just seemed really, really efficient for the points that it would cost. So once I kind of designed that, I figured that'd be my main ship because that's already getting you over 40 points. If I'm gonna hit hard, I wanted Picard or Ducat for the action economy. And with Officer Exchange, I was able to fit in Forrest, which created what I called the Sunterfell build of Attack Wing. And if you play X-Wing, Sunterfell is this crazy maneuverable character who has a lot of actions and just kind of flanks all his enemies and hits first. And that's kind of what I was going for with this build, was this super efficient ship that can just get anywhere on the board and flank whoever he wants and then hit really hard. So I had that part in place. And I was pretty satisfied with that. I kind of experimented with other builds, but over and over, I kept coming back to that being sort of my main striker. It just seemed so efficient and so generally good. It didn't seem to have a strong weakness, and it seemed to be good against a variety of builds. So then the other half was what to do with the smaller ship. And I kind of toyed with different builds. I tried doing a small version of the Fed Dreadnought with a lot of defense, maybe going with Core and Riker, adding the shields. But it's hard at 40 points to do a really good defensive ship.
Yeah.
So then I was thinking, a Cloak Mine Carrier. I really hate Cloak Mines, so I was trying to avoid that, but again, they're really good. But the problem is I only own one set of Cloak Mines, and I wasn't going to go buy more. And so with one Cloak Mines, it's good, But they really come into their own when you can set up 2 or 3, because then you can really control the board with that many. So then I kind of looked at Projected Stasis Field, which I've always liked as a card, even though I haven't played with it that much. And I started sort of gaming out what these would look like, right? So you've got an open field for regionals, so it's going to be almost always a straight-up joust. And there's going to be 3 ships for most people, right? 2 main ships and then the booster. And so to me, I was like, how do I survive that initial joust? I've got a great hitter, heavy hitter with the bioship, but it's going to be hard to really flank them in the main engagement without sort of giving up another ship that they can focus on. And so then I came up with Lure. And to me, Lure is, I was going through Croesus builds. I was going through builds with, I think it's 2nd of 5, with Admiral Kirk, trying to find all these counters, the Cardassian Admiral who can nuke captains, and they were all too specific, right? There was always a build that they just didn't do much against. But Lure works against everything. Like, it's going to work against every ship in the game. And the way I viewed it was, the more I thought about it, the more I really like Lure, because Lure is a form of attack cancellation, right? If you can get the enemy's Alpha Strike ship to veer off course, even for a turn, that's a huge shift in the game's momentum. But it's not just an attack cancellation if it works. It's also a positioning card that positions the enemy ship right where you need them to be, which of course worked really well with my Picard Forest build. So once I really thought of Lure and Projected Stasis Field, it was like Lure will move 1 enemy ship out of arc on my ships in theory, unless they're a 360 ship, and even then I could probably stay at range 3. So that's 1 ship gone. And then Projected Stasis Field could get a 2nd ship. But then you've got the problem that Projected Stasis Field leaves your ship without any shields. It's my smaller ship, so it's probably going to get shot at by the 3rd ship because they're going to see an exposed ship. So really I decided, how do I keep this Projected Stasis Field ship alive? Because I did not want to give up points, right? Like, you give up points, and that leads to ties or to losses. Like losing a ship, even if I took one out in the initial engagement, if I'm losing a 40-point ship, it's just throwing off my game. And so when I found the Valjean, I went through a few of the Romulan ships, but the Valjean is really, really survivable. Because if you're only expecting 1 attack from the enemy, you've got 3 agility, 3 hull, and then you've got the possibility of up to 3 more evades from disabling upgrades. And once I sort of did the math, I found that it was really, really unlikely for an enemy to one-shot it, given that I had Lure, and given that I had a Projected Stasis Field, which would both likely take out their big hitters. And so to me that was set. It was mainly a matter of taking a ship that could survive a counterattack on the turn it used the Stasis Field.
I like it. And even if you're up against something like Mag Charges, where you're not getting those defense dice, you can still add evade results.
Exactly. That was the other issue I had, was Mag Charges could cut through a lot of the defensive builds, but the Valjean can just shake them off.
Mm-hmm. You said you ran Officer Exchange Program as your resource, right? Okay. So we saw a lot of Officer Exchange Program in Modesto. We saw a bit of Protocol, which was really enjoyable. We saw a tiny prize build maximizing Protocol.
Oh, I read about that one.
Yeah, that shuttle knot.
Yeah.
Did you guys see many shuttle knots up there?
I didn't face a shuttle knot build. And thinking back through the people I talked to in the games I kind of got a chance to hear about, I can't think of someone who was running one. That's not to say no one did. There was 15 players, but I didn't see it in any of the games, which also kind of surprised me, because speaking of Lure, the other reason I thought of Lure was if I saw a shuttle knot build, the first turn I would just lure away their ship, right?
Yeah.
Prevent the docking and just charge in full steam ahead to try to take them out the next turn with the Bishop Alpha and Forest, but. I didn't see that.
Yeah. I like hearing everything you got. It seems like you've got a lot of things under control. Maybe one weakness in that build is if somebody runs like triple cloaked mines and they control a lot of the battlefield area. But even then, seems like you've got a lot of heavy hitters in there, and the durability with a bioship. And I'd love to see like your list go against Todd's list, go against Ben's list, and see what comes out of that.
Well, I did get a chance to face a list like that Robinson build. I think that was that Ben's list, the Robinson build? Yeah. So one of my opponents was running a list that was very similar to that. It had the Robinson, it had Admiral Worf, it could launch 2 or 3 attacks at 7 or 8 dice in a single turn. And actually, lure was what tilted the game in my favor. We set up for that initial engagement, and right when I knew we were going to close in to less than range 3, popped the lure, steered the Robinson away from the battle, and just started hammering the enemy ships. It still ended up being a pretty good match because the Robinson is actually pretty survivable as well, since it can cancel 3 hits. And he ended up, keeping the Robinson alive in that engagement. But I did take out another of his ships on that engagement, and then we duked it out. But it was the use of the lure to prevent that alpha strike that made that game go in my favor.
Well, and the best thing I'm hearing from you, and this is what I was telling people in prepping for regionals, you have to have some form of disruption.
Yes.
Give me the projected stasis field, give me 2nd to 5, Gen Cisco.
Right.
Something like that, Admiral Kirk even, Goma Dread. And then some way of altering their plan in the battle.
Right. Absolutely. So much of the game at this stage is combo based or based on, having a couple cards that can really create some monster effects. And if you don't have a way to answer that, you're probably going to lose because your opponent's going to have their plan, and if they can execute it, then it's going to overcome, whatever you have if it's not prepared for that specific thing. The other thing about that, too, is so much of the game can become a rock, paper, scissors thing, right? Like, someone brings the Fed knot, so then someone counters with the magnetic charges, but then someone brings an alpha strike, and it's like, part of what I wanted to do when thinking about the meta was come up with a build that could get outside of that rock, paper, scissors thing. And if not excel at handling everything, at least do a decent job at handling anything that came its way. And that's where lure and projected stasis field came into play, right? Lure, again, sets up the positioning, prevents an alpha strike, and projected stasis field, at best, can really, let me destroy a ship immediately. But even at worst, it's canceling a big hit from them whenever I need it, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's something with the change now to conditional surrender, with basically every attack cancellation being a once per game.
Right.
I think projected stasis field's making a comeback.
I agree. I think with the attack cancellation having been reduced, I think projected stasis field is going to see a lot more play now because it can really, really hurt opponents. And I think, too, we were playing, obviously, the 90 points plus a blind, but I think if you're playing 120 points, I don't see any reason not to include it, right? You just pop it on a little shuttle or a little Romulan evade craft, and it's a great use of your points. Imagine you cancel an attack from the biggest enemy ship, you reduce their shields, and probably set up an insta kill. I mean, it's a great card.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, why not run 2?
Yep. I mean, why not? Right?
Not to use on the same turn.
Right.
Different
exactly.
turns.
No, you're absolutely right. Why not?
But keep them going.
Yeah.
Just because it's messy. I'd love to see projected stasis field be a thing that messes with the game.
I think it should be. I think it's a really, really powerful card, and it's almost better than some attack cancellations, right? Attack cancellation is prevent an attack that your opponent has chosen. Projected stasis field is you choose which attack you're canceling, basically, for the whole round, too. So
switching gears a little bit, you played 6 matches, right?
7 total by the end of it.
Oh, 7.
Yeah,
totals.
we did four qualifying rounds.
Okay.
And then cut to 8.
Okay. So, did you go 7-0?
I did.
Okay. Big hitter there.
It was, some of that was skill, but a lot of it was luck. I faced some really excellent opponents throughout the entire day. I mean, there were a lot of really close matches. A lot of matches I won just by killing a ship. But I was fortunate to win every single game I played.
Oh, that's awesome. So, a lot of great opponents, I'm sure.
Yep.
Did you play anyone twice between Swiss and then cut 8?
No, I was fortunate in that I like playing different people and seeing different builds, and thankfully I never had a repeat throughout the day.
So, I know this is probably a tough question, and maybe with a default answer, but if you had to relive one match, but you couldn't change anything, which match would you relive?
There were a lot of great fun matches, and only a few of them did I went through a shutout where I destroyed everything, and while those were enjoyable, I have to say in terms of satisfaction, in terms of feeling like I played a really great game that really pushed me to the limit, that would probably be the quarterfinals against Richard Bliss, who was running a minefield build where he just set up a defensive wall in front of me and then had ships that could do reverse move maneuvers. And he just laid his mines out there and said, basically just hung out in the back, letting me decide whether to come straight at him or sort of veer off, and then he could pursue me from the flank. And, from what I heard, Richard had just had a roll off the previous game because he had been playing a similar cloak mine build.
Mm.
And probably if I'd really thought it through, I probably would have maybe realized that he probably wasn't going to risk another roll off, but I wasn't really sure, and I did not want my game to end in a roll off. So as my ships were sort of inching forward, building up the biotechnology, I knew he had lure too, which was also fascinating. It was the only other build that I saw that had lure, and we kind of talked about it, and both were kind of singing its praises and realizing what a great card it was. Yeah, that game really pushed me to the limit and pushed me to use like basically everything I knew about the game. And honestly, it was a game where neither of us could make a mistake. Like a mistake from either one of us would have just shifted the game completely. But the big moment, and the reason I would want to relive it, is because it was a moment where I felt like I was in a Star Trek episode where I'm kind of coming towards this minefield and I see his ships hanging back there, and I look at the board and I'm just like, okay, do we press forward? Do we go through that minefield with all our ships? And I kind of thought of Cisco in that episode. I think it's Sacrifice of Angels, where the Dominion fleet is arrayed in a defensive formation. And Cisco's got his smaller fleet, and he just kind of says, fortune favors the bold, and charges ahead. And I kind of said, okay, fortune favors the bold. Let's do it. Let's just go through that minefield. And so I sent my whole fleet straight through it. Thankfully, fortune did favor me because I got some lucky rolls, and he got some unlucky rolls. And there were two critical points in that match. One was where he lured my Valjean away from the engagement, but it ended up being, and I lured one of his ships into the engagement, and we had to call the judge over because projected stasis field is only range 1 to 2, and it was right on the border whether the Valjean was in range 2 or not of his ship.
Oh.
And the judge came over and ruled that it was in range 2. So I was able to pull. If I had not been able to pull off the stasis field, then I think he would have won right there. Pulled it off. The minefield though hit the Valjean for a couple damage and almost killed it, but it stayed alive. And then the other thing that happened was later on, we were exchanging fire, and he brought down my Klingon booster to 1 hull point. And if he had rolled one more hit on his die, my Klingon ship would have died and not been able to return fire and kill one of his ships, which again would have just shifted the whole match in his favor. So it was a really exciting, tense match, and probably one of the best games of Attack Wing I've played.
I think I remember hearing somebody say that they wish they had that game on camera.
Yeah, I saw someone on Facebook say that. I in hindsight, I wish so too.
That might have been Joseph that said that.
Yeah. It was a good one. It was a good one to play, and even if I hadn't been in it, I'd want to see a match like that just because it was so tense and exciting, and just both of us were just using everything we had in terms of our cards, in terms of our skill, and it was just a really, really good match.
Well, you painted a great picture of that match. I felt like I was there.
Okay.
I'll get you out of here on these last 2 questions.
Sure.
Number 1, has it set in that you're a regional champion?
That's a funny question because it actually, it kind of was a little surreal when I won. I almost couldn't believe it. Like, I've done good in OP events and everything, but it's not quite the same to play an OP event with local players, where it's a little more casual and more fun than to go to a major tournament. And also it was such a long day. I mean, 7 rounds. I was kind of like just getting a little tired by the end of it and doing everything to try to keep my focus. That I was more just relieved than excited at the end of the day. But when it really hit me was the next day when I got home from work and started opening up all the boosters that I won. That was really when it hit me, when I just laid them all out there and was like, wow, like I've got them all now. Like, I had none of the boosters before, and now I had the whole set, and that felt kind of good.
It's a lot of fun to open up 10 boosters, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of randomized collecting, but it is fun when you when you've got a full set for sure, and when you're just kind of opening them up, and I hadn't seen any of the cards really since your preview, so it was kind of neat to actually see them again and see what all the cards did and remember all the effects and see the ships in person. And the paint jobs are really good on the new booster, so that was kind of nice too to see.
Yeah,
the
I
new
love
models.
those things. And final question for you: any plans for nationals and or worlds this year?
I'd love to, but I'm gonna have to see if that works out. It's before I wasn't really sure. I knew I was a good player, but not a great player. But having won a regional, that does give you sort of a confidence boost that maybe you can stand a chance with the big players over there. So I'll have to see. At this point, I don't have any firm plans, but I'm definitely going to take a second look now that I've got this win under my belt.
Well, I'm trying to get as many good people at least thinking about it, and from what I'm hearing, you've got the mind for building and the mental fortitude to hang in there for a whole bunch of rounds and keep making smart decisions. So if it's at all possible, I think we'd love to see you go and do your best and try to get a win from that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I will definitely take a careful look, and if I can do it, I will.
All right. Hey, Hugo, thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us your time, and congratulations again on the win and for representing Washington.
Thanks. It's been my pleasure, and thanks again for having me on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Take care.
Thanks. You too.
Now, the thing I loved about talking to Hugo was getting into the build aspect of the game, what cards can be better, where a list comes from, and that is such a fascinating aspect of this game. And as you hear from Hugo, there was so much to consider. You never know what you're going to face, and you just have to stick in there. So, great job, Hugo. I still love that Valjean, and wonderful things there. Our final interview now. You know him from Worlds, you know him from State of the Federation, or as I like to call him, the mad scientist, Joseph. All right, so now we have Joseph with us, and Joseph won Rochester and came in number 3 in New Jersey. So congratulations, Joseph, on both of those finishes.
Thanks. Small regionals, but good lists here and there. So.
Yeah. Well, you got the pleasure of facing Ben in number 2, and having to contend with Ellis's take on a modified list of what Todd did. And
that's right. Yeah, they're they both had scimitars and they both had prototypes, right?
Yeah, but different aspects of how you make it work, and different captains on the scimitars, and different captains underneath Gareb for skill, and different upgrades on the prototype. I want to think. I know Todd was running Type 8 and attack pattern Omega, I think.
That's right. Yeah. And I mean, a lot about the scimitar is how you fly it anyway. So.
Right. How you use those minefields once they're down, when you choose to use your Romulan helmsman to come about, when you choose to use that interface generator. Lots of tricky choices.
Exactly, yeah.
So, you have a unique perspective. 2 different venues, 2 different lists. And I know one of those lists, you kind of went in there saying, I'm going to break a ruling and get it wharfed. And you did that quite successfully with Mirror Bashir.
That's right, yeah.
And I still think that's the fastest we've ever seen Wharf act. So congratulations on that.
Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Peter and I were pretty pleased about that.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have other tricks up your sleeve that you don't want to discuss.
Well, hopefully 1 or 2, but you never know until the day of. So I have two regionals ahead of me. Ottawa, which I think will be pretty small, and Whitby, which hopefully is a little larger.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear more about what comes out of Canada, and maybe we'll have you back for a little bit of talk on Canadian regionals.
Well, I mean, if we look at the world standings, the game's played pretty well up here.
Yeah.
So they should be interesting.
So between your 2 venues, Which boosters did you pull?
In Rochester, I pulled the Ferengi, which I actually think is the worst booster. And in New Jersey, I pulled the Vulcan, which gets a bad rap, but I actually think is on the higher level of the booster power spectrum.
Yeah, well, going back to our tournament, we all saw what Vatosh Couture could do.
That's right, exactly. And a lot of the blinds, even the bioship, are trading, in 1, maybe 2 rounds of combat. The Vulcan ship's going to get a 6-dice attack and a 3-dice attack. If they both get to attack in the second round, it's the bioship, which is obviously the best one, is only going to get 6 dice and 6 dice, so it's a difference of 3 dice, really.
Yeah. All you're doing at that point is softening yourself up, but
And, the Vulcan has 9 hit points between hull and shield, so the bioship only has 1 or 2 more, depending on if you go named or not. And the Vulcan one was actually nice to get because my build in Rochester, part of the appeal of it was that it almost didn't matter what blind I got, other than a little bit the Ferengi, but because I was directing the attacks or canceling them, my blind was going to stick around a lot longer. So I would have even been quite content to get the Bajoran blind because it would have been around for a while and it would have got a lot of shots off. And certainly that first big shot would have come through no matter what.
Well, that's good to hear.
And then the one advantage to the Ferengi, that first build I played in Rochester, the one sort of weakness is if someone played double fighters, because Julian Bashir doesn't work on fighters, right? Because he says a ship on it, so he can't cancel their attacks. So actually having the Ferengi blind was a little bit of insurance for me, because if I did run up against a double fighter list, I'd probably have a pretty easy time with it, with that weapon that comes on the Ferengi blind.
Yeah, weapon ports is one of those clutch cards.
Though, funnily enough, I did play one match, and the person was running Fed fighters, and the TO at Rochester ruled that shields would cancel hits. So I had rolled 3 or 4 hits, I can't remember, and so I destroyed a shield, knocked off a pip, destroyed a shield, knocked off a pip instead of knocking off 3 pips. Still better than any other blind could have done. I got 2 pips instead of 1.
That's a good way to look at it. I guess that is one that Worf never has actually addressed.
Well, there's a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Who knows how shuttles work?
I don't know. You're the one who runs them. I've never flown a shuttle.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mostly because I don't want to make my venue cry. But, yeah, it's... you're right. Who does know how shuttles work? So that first list, I know it was Tactical Cube and Quark's Treasure with Bashir, and kind of the rest of it doesn't really matter. Is that a good way of putting it?
The rest of it is, well, the projected stasis field matters.
Oh yeah.
I want to cancel 2 attacks in the first round because the shuttle's not firing. Who knows what blind I'm going to get? In my main 90 points, I just have 1 ship that's firing instead of 2, right? So in any kind of a damage race, I really want to take those 2 attacks off the board first round, or one of the rounds anyway, to just put me ahead. So that matters. The rest of it is more just contingency plans for troubling builds potentially. So I had Lee Alice on there, and I could slide him over to stop Gul Madred, obviously, who would be a big problem because if I got Gul Madredded, my shuttle would have higher captaincy than my tactical cube, and the docking trip wouldn't work anymore.
Oh yeah.
So Gul Madred I had to have a complete answer for him. And I guess in the worst case scenario, like if they had Captain Gul Madred lead Dallas backup of their own for a couple times, like I could waste some time and like transfer but 10 a loss over to the tactical cube, and then it would work again. But that would be kind of a last ditch effort. I had Romulan pilot on there in case there are any builds with extra movement that were going to try and stick at range 3, just because I didn't run mags or anything like that on the tactical cube, so I was limited to range 2, which is deceptively better than you'd think. And another reason the tactical cube really is the only ship that works in the build. You cover a lot of ground with that big base, right? So
Yeah.
getting to range 3 is actually difficult, but there are some ships with extra movement capabilities where that could be a problem. Romulan pilot just lets me jump up right onto them and get into range 1.
Okay. So I like that. We have another person here who is in good favor of projected stasis fields, so maybe it's not that secret card that nobody's talking about anymore.
No, I would think that its popularity has dipped a little bit because it's a lot harder to fit into 90 points than 120. At 120, I very rarely come up with a list that doesn't have it in there.
Yeah. It's kind of what's not to like about that.
Yeah, well, you're giving up just a small attack, which you're probably not going to use anyway. And then when you're launching the shuttle, you're launching it to the outermost limit of range 1 and then some, because it's just the back of the base in range 1, right? And then that gives you some extra push to really close into range 2 to get it off. And the shuttle can be pointing in any direction you want, so it makes using it, all too easy.
Yeah. So, I'm going to take this in a different direction. You've had a chance now to play in 2 regionals, look at a lot of lists that have come out of Washington, Modesto, Chicago a little bit. I don't think we've heard much from Austin. But where do you think the game is? Competitive lists. Like, we're hearing some people say it's all kind of pretty much the same, but do you feel that way? Do you think it's the same, or do you think there's still a lot of room for variety? Where do you think it is?
I don't really feel that the lists that have shown up so far are that similar. I mean, we pointed out there was some similarity with Ellis and Todd, but they've been pretty diverse, diverse range of ships. Now, the actuality of the game right now is that I think it's fairly diverse. I don't think that we're seeing people locked down in on one strategy or one ship or only 2 or 3 ships. Less concretely, talking more abstractly about the game, I think the sky's the limit right now. I think the important thing to remember about this game, and you were the one who actually pointed this out to me, was that that they design it for theme, and if the cards have a competitive application, so be it, right? And that trickles into the player base a lot so far, or trickles into the player base a lot. So I don't think that we've seen a lot of scimitars necessarily because they're the best ship. I'm not saying they're not the best ship. I think we see them a lot because people really like to play 6 dice attack ships, and they don't like playing Borg, or they love the scimitar because honestly it's the coolest ship from any of the movies and TV shows, in my opinion, right? Like, why wouldn't you want to play it, right? As far as I can tell, I think there's nothing that is just like one strategy that you have to use. And I think that there's a million builds out there for people to play as well. I don't think we've scratched the surface. Let me put it that way.
See, this is good to hear. This refreshes me, gives me hope that there's a lot of variety left, a lot of different aspects to pursue, different avenues to go, and I think I saw that just looking at the top 4 in Modesto. We've got that Romulan build, we've got a Borg build, we've got a shuttle knot, and we've got double fed ships with Quark dropping antimatter mines.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing you have to realize about this game is, unlike something like Magic, where in Magic you'll have a 2,000 person tournament, a high profile tournament, every month of every year, right? And the top decks in a format will rise to the top, and at a certain point, you just can't argue with the numbers, right? I mean, if these 4 or 5 decks keep winning in 2,000 person tournaments, that means that those are the tier 1 decks, right? Attack Wing doesn't have those numbers, and to me, what's popular is not, a blueprint of what is good. So I think we should embrace that and realize that you can do almost anything you want. There's no meaningful tier 1 lists of fleets that will probably ever happen, just because we don't have the raw data to do something like that. And an anecdote that I'll give you that I think illustrates that is, Peter and I finished first and second at Worlds and kind of had, to be frank, an idea that was a cut above, which was the extra movement, right? Less than 2 months after Worlds, we were testing out some builds, and it was all with cards that had been released during World, and we stumbled across some good ideas, and we're like, wow, I wish I had played this, because I wouldn't have lost a step against any other build, and I would have just crushed you in the final. And that was true on both sides, right? So there's always room for something else in this game.
And I think even more than rock, paper, scissors, it's rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock.
Exactly. And some of the best things in the game are not, I guess the best way to do it is with another example, Cloaked Mind. That's a great card, undercosted, amazing, right? But the way to beat it is to fly around them, right? And every fleet has access to setting their maneuver dial. So that, it's not like if they play Cloaked Minds, you have to be playing a specific Minesweeper card or multi-adaptive shield or something like that to beat it. It doesn't work rock, paper, scissors like that, right?
You're right. I mean, Cloaked Minds are definitely that. You see them and you go, okay, now I'm in for a totally different game.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't question their power. I'm just saying, the way you play them is by flying, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to have included a specific card in your fleet to beat them. Now, that being said, if you're just running Galers, you're going to have problems because they're not flying around anything.
And we saw that. We saw people have trouble with Cloaked Minds, and they're the ones that just can't deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but there are people who are taking Galers for other benefits. And they're saying, I'll soak up a round or two of Cloaked Minds because they give me this. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, look at Craig's list from Modesto with the assimilated version.
Yeah, that's right. He played one, and obviously there was a lot of Cloaked Minds at Modesto. So.
Yeah, now he didn't come up against Albert's list, thankfully. People will see that video when it goes up, and they'll cry.
Well, I got to hear about that build long before it made its debut, or made its debut at the regional anyway. So.
Yeah, well, it's the same build Richard was running up in Washington.
That's right. Yeah.
It's 3 Cloaked Minds or 2 Cloaked Minds, hide in a corner and just forward, backward, forward, backward, forward, backward.
The brainchild of one of the finest minds in tackling, Robert Fletcher.
Yeah. I feel bad because Robert had a terrible day playing. He was 0-2 and a bye, but God, that man can build.
I know. He had Admiral Force the first 2 rounds. Tucker will swear up and down that I'm crazy, but I think if he had got different matchups, he could have won the whole thing. I was pretty confident with that build he had.
Yeah, I saw that build too. I was like, yeah, that's clever.
But I mean, that's how it goes.
One thing I'd like to see for Cloaked Minds is a Minesweeper card. Just some little tweak that gives you that potential counter. I don't know that it's necessary, but it would be nice to have the option to include it.
would like to see that, and I know actually Ben and I were having a conversation in New Jersey, and he'd very much like to see it too. I'd like to see it in the vein of, a 5-point or even 6-point test, and this is why. The thing I love the most about Cloak Mines is they stop the simple joust, right? And they really make you use the whole board and turn it into a bit of a cat and mouse fight, right? You can't just blast straight ahead and they blast straight ahead at you and the dice decide it. So I don't want to see something like a 1-point upgrade that everyone can just include and sort of get them out of the game. I really like having them in the game. But at 6 points, if it gets rid of all the Cloak Mines, well, if you're running a 3 or 4 Cloak Mine build, you've just lost, right? You've just spent 12 to 16 points that have been rendered useless, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'd certainly like to see.
Well, there you go. That's something that hopefully we can see in the future.
Well, we need a mine. I mean, is there a minesweeper ship in the show that hasn't been released? That's what we need. We need the thematic justification to find it.
Now I'm racking my Star Trek brain and going, we have mine layers.
Yeah, exactly.
There's got to be like some suicidal Dominion ship that did it.
Well, I guess there's that. Well, how'd the Cardassians get rid of them when they mined the wormhole?
Did they maybe use the station?
Yeah, there you go. There's the technique.
So you could justify that on a new Dominion expansion and just throw it in there.
Absolutely.
Like, it would work. I mean, we've seen so many cards that don't have perfect thematic justification, but there's a loose tie, so I'm okay with that.
I say release another retail DS9 with that being the only card, and watch people have to tearfully pull out their wallet.
No, at that point they make it a 1-point card.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm paying $100 for a 1-point card that I have to have. Now this game is pay to win.
That's right. Yeah, that would certainly be.
But, I'm okay with that at some point. No, what they should do is probably use that as the K7 card.
Yeah, true. I mean, I can't see not buying one of those, so.
Yeah, same. It's like at some point you're like, fine, I'll get it.
You win. You win, Winston. You win.
So, little controversial here, but are you glad that you got a copy of Wave 23 for free?
Well, I'm actually looking at them right now because I haven't taken them out of the packs, and I was thinking, and actually I got 2 copies because I made top 4 in New Jersey as well, obviously. Yeah. So I can't, maybe I'm wrong, I just can't conceive of people buying them and there's actually no cards in them that I'll ever want, so I may take the Jazz Cow because that model really does look a lot nicer than the Praetus. And I can at least imagine a day where I might run a Praetus at some point. So it'd be nice to have that slick new model. But for the other 2, I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I obviously don't want to throw them away, but there doesn't seem to be any pressing need to take them out of their packaging. For me.
I understand that.
Because I came to this game because I love Star Trek, same as anyone else, probably. But I play it, competitively and to win, which is to say I can still have fun. I do play in events where they're not competitive and they're just, fun, kind of zany events too, but.
Yeah. The one thing I've come to justify the AMAR on is that it has a solo mission, so some people will buy it just because it has a solo mission.
Well, that is something. That is not bad.
I don't know that justifies a full pack, but it's a little something.
Yeah.
And the model does look relatively nice. At least everything is assembled correctly.
Credit where credit is due. WizKids models over the last, 5 waves, 10 waves? Have been tremendous.
Yeah, excepting the Tong with the backwards nacelles.
Right.
But yeah, just about that. It's good stuff. I like it. It's certainly prettier.
Oh yeah, I've been grabbing up Bioship Omegas. I don't want to run the other ones. They don't look as nice.
And they're really hard to repaint.
I could see how that would be the case.
Some of the other ships you can repaint, but Bioships are a pain. Yeah, I still only have one Bioship Omega. I'm a little sad.
One of the venues I play at, every round you shift to a new blind.
Okay.
So you can only play a blind once, right? And whoever wins the event gets first choice of blind. So I have quite a few Omegas and Makotas to my name. But
That's actually a really fun way to run a tournament. I should
Yeah.
try that sometime.
It's nice, and that's a little more of a freewheeling kind of a fun venue. We don't play suggested tournament format there. But that being the case, like, I could make a 90-point dreadnought that would ruin everyone's night. I never will though, because that's not what we're really doing over there. And so it actually brings the field a little closer together, because the person who is ahead gets to pick last in each round. So in the third round, I'm almost always facing, someone who has a better blind than me, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, in some of the other venues where we're competitive, it would be death, because it would be so frustrating, right, to get punished for your successes. But here it really works.
And from time to time, that's what it should be. This game should be fun. And it's what I always try to preach on Warp Core Breach. Have fun. Just don't tell me how to have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And find your way of having fun. That's why we have mission coverage. That's why we have faction peer coverage. That's why we have unlimited coverage. That's why we have tournament coverage. That's why we have home play coverage. It's anything that's associated with this game. We want to hear about it. We want to talk about it. And it's fun for somebody.
That's right.
So, and doing a mission like that, doing an OP setup like that, where you mess around, and then if you pull that Bajoran, you're only playing it once.
Yeah, exactly. It really makes it nice.
And maybe you brought triple fighters or double fighters, so you actually want to pull the Ferengi booster, or take it away from somebody else, so you don't have to face it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's some strategy in that too, but it's all fun, and as long as people are enjoying what they're doing, it's worthwhile.
That's right. Absolutely.
So, I'm certain I know the answer to this question, but for the audience, plans on Nationals, plans on Worlds?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on where they're going to be. Yeah, I mean, they haven't been announced. Assuming Worlds is at Origins, I'll almost certainly be going.
Yeah, I think they have announced that.
Okay. Good.
I don't think they made a huge to-do of it, but I think they pretty much said, hey, Worlds is at Origins.
Yeah, I had a great time last year. Met some great people who I still talk to today. So yeah, I'll definitely do that. You know who really needs to come is you.
I know. I'm working on it. I have a wedding to go to the next weekend, so funds are slim.
Well, just explain to them that your focus has to be attack-wing. I'm sure they'll understand.
It would work if I wasn't in the wedding. If I was a guest, I don't want to say just a guest, but if I was a guest, it might work, but when I'm a groomsman, it's a little different.
Yes, I suppose that's so.
But hopefully 2017 it'll happen, assuming this game is still living.
Well, we'll see.
If it's not, I will inject life support into this game to make it alive for some convention and get everyone that is interested to play some kind of a big tournament and get the prize support myself. I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Call it the Warp Core Breach tournament.
I wouldn't, when I started playing, I wouldn't have thought that I would have lasted to get to the first world.
True.
So, you know, it has some staying power.
Well, that's always a good thing to have in a game. We want to see Attack Wing continue to thrive and be around, because we all enjoy playing. I think that's something that nobody questions.
Certainly.
I mean, there may be frustrating days, and days you want to take your dice and throw them, or hit a ship with a sledgehammer. But
well, yes, there's no question. Some of my dice will be getting a very tough lesson at some point. As soon as I don't need to rely on them quite so much, they'll be dead.
Oh, just swap them with Peter's.
Yeah.
I'm sure he won't notice.
His defense dice, anyway.
That's why I have my dice have my initials written on silver Sharpie. Makes it far harder for anyone to actually tamper with my dice. But yeah, so any parting words from you, Joseph?
I really enjoyed reading the write-ups on the various regionals. I'm glad we have somewhat of a competitive scene, and I guess I said this already, but I really strongly believe it. Popularity is not an indicator of quality, and I really like this game. I've played the other Flight Path games, and I think that on balance, this one's vastly superior, and I'm proud to say that. So I mean, I hope that continues. I hope we keep playing, and I hope we keep writing about it, playing and gathering to play.
Well said. All right. Thank you, Joseph, for your time. Appreciate it. And
all right. Thanks for having me.
Hope to have you back to talk about more regionals or nationals or worlds, something like that.
That sounds like a plan.
All right. And now it's time for the Warp Core Breach Top 3. We count them up from 3 to 1, and then we toss it over to our contributors, so you get the best bang for your buck. This week's Top 3, Top 1-point cards.
You know, folks, David and I are rarely ever happy with leaving it at just 3. So we didn't push it to top 4 or top 5. How far did we go, David?
Well, I want to say we kicked it up to 11, but that would be a lie.
Oh, we could do it, but that would eat up pretty much all the good ones.
I think that would eat up every 1-point card that wasn't a Romulan discard fodder for Terrace.
Hey, watch it. My dad's build enjoys those.
Oh, I understand. Or, those discards for Mirror Cisco and, the other discard a crew cards. Lore. Come here, follower of Khan. I need you.
We need some more 1-point weapons for Reed.
Yes. Basically, here's what happened. Nick and I built our list. We came back together, and as he's telling me what his short list is, I literally said, Nick, I hate you. Because his short list was my top 3.
Yep.
So we said, you know what? Rather than have an exact duplicate list, let's expand the list and give you each our top 6. So this way, you actually get to hear 9 different cards. And by this, we're going to steal probably all of the thunder from our contributors. We're sorry. But this way, you're going to hear our thoughts on a bunch of cards, and then the best of the contributors.
Hey, they have their perspectives too. They're not just going to be clones of us.
Well, speak for yourself. I've cloned a Star Trek Attack Wing army. I was taking DNA samples at Modesto Regionals.
Well, I skipped over into another reality and I borrowed the replicators from the Stargate universe, and then I brought them over, had them assimilated by the Borg, and then neutered by Picard.
Fine. I just went to Earth 2 and brought back a copy of myself. But we're digressing right now. So, number 6. Yes, that's right, number 6. Cargo hold is my number 6. And yes, you can only put it on a Ferengi shuttle. I don't care. It works on Quark's treasure. It lets you take awesome stuff. More crew, more tech, one of each. It's the perfect compromise, and it gets you more stuff for the grand total of 1 point.
Woo-woo.
That is how you do extra slots.
Yes, sir. Yeah, for my top 6, I also did a faction exclusive, and we're talking Bioship Omega Pilot. It's like a 1 point Bioship card, period, is like, wow. And as a captain, you can't complain. You know, for disabling a card with an action, disable some shields, sure. Range 1, sure. But inflicting a critical damage direct to hull? I'd pay almost anything for that. And if you can do that every other turn, or maybe through some action shenanigan with some support ships or something, you know, you could do that every turn. That's pretty wicked.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That would have stopped a lot of really cool builds.
Yeah, especially if you throw it in with some talents that allow you to, like, choose which critical you throw on them. Kinda nice.
Yeah, yeah.
The moment I start talking, the groaning begins.
When you do damage, but most of them work.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. No, I love that card. That's a great captain. My only complaint there is that it's skill 2.
I know, but what do you expect for 1 point?
But if it was any higher, it wouldn't be a 1 point card.
Yeah, and anyway, its ability is great for a low captain skill ability.
Yes.
You know, you use it first.
Yeah.
Can't complain there. And given its conditional nature, that's why it's my number 6 and not my number 3, 2, or 1.
So I'm going to stick with species, and my number 5 is organic conduits.
Excellent card.
That's the 1 point tech that says when you reveal a red maneuver, you may discard this card to treat it as a white maneuver.
Hello.
It can only go on a species 8472 ship, but you know what? They've got 3 red moves, 3 come about, 3 hard turns.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take those as a white move any day.
Yeah, with 8472, you really take advantage of those come abouts or those hard turns. So for a super cheap Romulan helmsman in Bioship form or 8472 form for a point, hell yes, sign me up.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times you find yourself 1 point short, especially when you're building with Bioships, because all of their other cards are so expensive.
Yeah.
You might as well just have a 1 point card rather than go short. And Organic Conduits fills that void.
Well, my next one is Admiral Matt Decker.
I love Decker.
Yeah. In line with a Bioship Omega pilot, it's a damage dealer. You know, sometimes you might want to use it to boost your own attack, sacrifice one of your own hull, or you can just simply throw it at the enemy and say, sure, you can have a +1 attack, but I'm going to hit your hull with it. So, given the dual nature, the less conditions, I've bumped it up a little bit above the Omega pilot. So he's pretty sweet.
Decker is awesome. I love Decker. That -1 captain skill as an admiral, or the 2 skill captain, either way you want to go. You know, it's a reasonable thing, but being able to, again, say, hey, I'm doing damage in the activation phase. You can kill a ship before they get to move or before they get to fire, and
I've done it more than once.
Either of those things can be game winners.
Yeah. So you can use his -1 to lower the captain skill of your existing captain to make him go even sooner. I like him as an admiral because then either ship has the option of using the ability, right? And, you know, if you're thinking fleet pure and you're going for captain skill, you don't even need the fleet captain option anymore. You could have something like the Picards or whatever and throw on Pegasus Riker for +3 captain skill.
Yeah. Certainly ways to make that up.
Absolutely. I often use Pegasus Riker with Car.
I think somebody actually did that at regionals.
Yeah, works nice with Madrid too.
Yeah. There were too many 5 lights at regionals.
I know. There was even a t-shirt. It was awesome.
Yes. Well, there were 4 lights for a while. Then Madrid won, so.
Okay. I can't remember who it was that wore the t-shirt, but if you're listening, I want full frontal t-shirt.
It's London. He plays at my venue locally.
And
And he's an awesome guy. He's the guy that I was telling you about. He and I always have the awesome matches.
right.
Yes, I love that shirt.
Excellent.
But we digress, because Madrid is not a 1-point guard.
Moving on.
My number 4 is the tactical drone that comes on Scout 608.
Nice.
Now, I can't just say tactical drone because there's too many of them. But
the
this
unique tactical drone.
Yes, this is the unique 2-skill tactical drone that is essentially a counterattack die.
Mm-hmm.
Except it's when you're attacked, you get to roll an attack die, and on a hit or crit, do that damage back to your opponent.
And the nice thing is you do it during the roll defense dice step. So if you blow up their ship, doesn't that stop it?
No, you still take the damage.
Yeah, well, we can't get everything.
You can't get everything. You can't have your cake and eat it too. But
I was devil's advocate on that one.
Yeah, I understand.
There's some people have been asking lately.
Anyways, we're going to put that one on hold. We'll come back to that. But I still love the captain.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's fun to do damage. And I combine him with Magnus Hansen a lot, who's also a 1-point card and was on my longer short list of useful cards because you discard him instead of burning a drone token, so then you get a 3rd use out of this captain. And it's a reasonable, kind of cute combo.
Mm-hmm. And hey, there's another 1-point card that might kick in there, Hive Mind.
Yeah, sure.
Discard a card like Hansen to gain another point back so you can use them yet one more time.
There you go.
Throw on Goval.
No, because in order to use Goval with a drone captain, you have to spend a drone.
That's true.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's
what happens when you don't have them right in front of you. Alright, my number 4 is Admiral Q. You know, anybody who's ever listened to me talk on this show or to Nick's Intermix knows that I love movement and mobility. So Q is definitely up there. Like 1 point for the ability to 180. Hell yeah. And quite often I'm only going to ever do a 1 forward when I want to use it anyway. So there you go.
Yep. Everybody loves Admiral Q except the Borg.
Yeah, pretty much.
And maybe like some, I guess Bajorans don't like him too much because they already have white comeabouts.
Mm. And fortunately, though, even if you were to put Admiral Q on the Borg, it doesn't affect your drone tokens. It only affects your captain skill.
Right.
So, just so you know out there, you're all right for your own tokens.
Yep. So, I do like Admiral Q. He's very good. Again, one I considered and one that I kind of went, you know what? We had our time talking about captains and admirals, and I'm like, I'm gonna let that one slide. I'm gonna let Nick talk about it. All right. So those are our different ideas. Now we get into the same ideas.
Now, between the two of us, they aren't necessarily in the same order. There is a little bit of flip around, but they're the same top 3.
Yes.
Well, basically, the way I rate my cards as far as ranking usually comes down to versatility. How many different ways can I use this card?
Oh, sure.
Right? Not just how powerful it is in build 1 or X or, whatever. Because a card can be phenomenal in one particular build and then utterly useless in many, many, many other builds. Or just hardly worth bringing. Like, there are so many different ways to use Goval. Denarapel has different variations. Brunt is handy, but isn't really essential. It's more just a side support. So that's why I put Brunt as my number 3. Yeah. Never hurts to throw an Ox token out.
Yeah. So I threw Brunt as my number 1 because I love the effect of being able to toss Ox Power at my opponent and say, ha. And sometimes, because you do it at the end phase, they go into planning and they forget about it.
Yeah.
And you're going to catch them off guard. It's a little bit of that mental game that might actually matter. Look at Worlds 2015. It happened when Peter did it to Joseph, and it won him the world championship.
Yep, I remember.
And Joseph will never live that down, and he admits it. He admits to it. He cops up to it. But it's just this matter of sometimes you play a psychological game, and Brunt lets you do that. I don't deny the versatility of Govol at all. I love Govol. I probably play Govol more than any other single card. At least since he's come out. Maybe not so much lately because of how much Rikers get played and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Govol tends to be that go-to because you want one more use of that discard crew.
Exactly.
And that drawback of if you have him on a drone token captain, you have to spend a drone token. Not much of a drawback because you just don't put him on a drone token captain.
Exactly.
And Dinara Pell is one of the really good discard for a discard crew.
Yeah, it's a kind of a sleeper hit, really. Like, honestly, until I went through this list, I never really went back over the Vidians after my second attempt at playing them. Like, I kind of wrote off the majority of them. It's just kind of like, eh. But going through this again, reading that out, it's like, hey, Dinara Pell is basically what like the Bokra Parem Patak follower of Khan types are without any of the limitations.
Right. She works through cloak. She works through shields.
You don't have to lower your shields. You don't have to go against a ship that's shields down and not cloaked. None of that limitations. You just do it.
Right. The only limitation she has is range 1.
Oh, big deal. There's going to be a point where you're at range 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not a big deal, especially for a 1-point card.
Yeah, and usually it's at a critical moment where, you know, if they're a faction or a build that's relying on their crew, you're really going to hurt them.
Yeah.
Especially if they're relying on something like a Hood Riker.
Yeah, or a Sulu.
Yeah.
You know.
Or a flipping 7 of 9. And by flipping, I mean repeated use.
Right, or a Hathaway Wharf or something like that.
Yeah.
Even Bohica is somebody to get rid of. Because that denies them some quality.
Grenade. Yeah.
Exactly. There's a lot of
Bruce
things.
Fox. The list is endless.
It really is. And that's kind of the point here. And this is the point I was making of why Fina Prime is still a very viable expansion to pick up, is Dinara Pell almost makes that pack worthwhile by herself.
Well, think about it. Like Admiral Kirk. He's more expensive. Takes more to make that something that you want to go for. Granted, fleet action flexibility. Dinara Pell's 1 point. You slap her on there, you get to do the same thing. Granted, only once, but sometimes that's all you need. It's like if you want to take out a whole bunch more crew, like if you know you're going against a Fedliner, take Scimitar with Thaleron weapon. You know?
Except Dinara Pell discards the enemy. Kirk disables it.
I know. And that's another reason why she's even better. There's not a lot of cards that effectively and efficiently discard enemy cards.
Yeah, it's 2nd of 5 and Dinara Pell.
Yeah.
I mean, Croesus steals.
Highly underrated cards.
Yeah.
Steals is pretty much like a discard.
Except it can't be blocked.
Right.
Which is even better, but...
True. But more points.
It's all more points.
Yeah. Justifiably so.
Oh, yeah. Because it doesn't have that. But yeah, I mean, so when you're talking about things... So we agree, Dinara Pell, 2nd best 1-point card in this game. We flip-flop on Brunt and Govol. And you ask me on another day, I'll put Govol at number 1.
Yeah, likewise.
But...
these 3 can easily flip around.
Sure.
Honestly, my top 5 could flip around.
Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously my Omega Pilot is only going to be valid if I'm playing bioships, right?
Well, yeah, of course.
In most cases. But yeah, like my top 5 could rotate any easy day.
Yeah, my top 3 was pretty solid, and after that, I'm kind of like, there's a distinction. It's not much of a drop off, but there's a little bit of a drop off. So that's where it is for me. But I think the lesson here, and the reason we're doing this, is there's a fair number of 1-point cards that do have versatility. And if you're ever stuck, as an exercise, go pick a point cost and just look at everything at that point cost and try to find something you haven't considered before.
Absolutely. Like, I counted 17 particularly useful 1-point cost cards. And still more that are just like, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even talk about Shroud.
No, we didn't talk about Shroud, the Doctor, Clark Terrell. Kind of teased Hive Mind a little bit.
A little bit. Tay, the new Romulan cloaking helper.
The escape pods for conditional last ditch.
Yeah.
You know, tractor beam.
Yeah, exactly.
So
just
expand your horizons. Open your mind.
Just don't open it to the Hive.
Thoughtmaker will have you.
All right. So that's what it is for us. Contributors, take it on over.
Hello, everyone. This is Matt, aka Omicron, bringing you greetings from Ontario, Canada. When I think of my favorite 1-point card, I immediately think of Admiral Matt Decker. People both love him and hate him at the same time. Why do I like him so much, you may ask? One word: utility. Want to drop your initiative levels to get out there and use your actions sooner? Matt Decker can help you with that. Don't care about your hull and just want to get an extra attack die? Matt Decker has your back. Want to try and still do some damage when you've put yourself out of arc but you're still within range 1? You guessed it, Matt Decker is your second chance. Fighter's still a thing where you play? He can help you take one out in a jiff if you maneuver right. Need something to get through those dodgy shielded ships that are such a nuisance? How about one straight to the hull, courtesy of no one other than Matt Decker? Matt Decker is a very thematic card. He was really messed up and kind of a jerk in the original series, and WizKids has done a great job in carrying over this theme into Attack Wing. So whether you're wanting extra damage, you want to lower your initiative, or you just want your playgroup to let out a collective sigh of disdain when they see that you brought him, Matt Decker is a solid choice. And for 1 point, you cannot beat the price.
Hey, this is Big John, fighting on behalf of the Klingon Empire, Kapla. This week we're talking about our favorite 1-point card, and of course, the only 1-point card we have available as a Klingon faction is Clag. Clag was the second officer on the Pah, and he was replaced by William Riker, who came aboard as part of the Officer Exchange Program in Star Trek The Next Generation. Clag was played by character actor Brian Thompson, who has several other cards available in the game, but he doesn't get quite as much mention as Jeffrey Combs does. So, Clag is your typical gank card, and he is one of those cards where you disable your shields, discard Clag, and discard a crew on an opposing ship that has no shields up. And the only Klingon 1-point card. So, I'd like to thank Steven from DaVinci DreamWorks 2 for recommending me, and for putting forth all these great OPs where I can try out all my Klingon cards and tactics. Catch you guys next week.
Hello, this is Steven Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina, here to answer this week's question, which is, what is my favorite 1-point card in the game? As you know, there are many of them out there, but the one I think I'd go with, just purely because it's fun for me to play, is the Doctor, which is a Federation captain card, 1 point. It adds an element of challenge to the game in that at the start of the combat phase, you roll an attack die. On a hit, the Doctor skill goes to 10 for the rest of the combat phase. If not, it goes to 0, and either way, you get an auxiliary token. Now, I know that's not, a preferable thing to have, but I have played this card, in a few matches, and it has worked out. Ironically, with the dice rolls being what they are, it's worked out to an advantage where I've been able to use the Doctor and put on the right ship. That's given me a good combat strike ability, which has changed the format of the game as opposed to when he was just playing as a 0. I tend to use the card in the build to kind of, play it as though, well, I'm not going to have that 10 anyway, but when I do, it definitely gives me a combat advantage. So that's the card I'm going with, the Doctor. This is Steve Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina, hoping all your dice rolls are hits and evades. Have a great day and live long and prosper. Bye.
Hi everyone, not Picard here. My favourite 1 point card. Now, there are 2 that stick out for me, but being as I'm supposed to only choose one, I will go for Shroud rather than Mirror Universe Brunt. Shroud is a card that allows you to, it's a text slot, allows you to not to discard a Dominion crew member, and I think that's a really useful card to have. It allows cards like Ramataclan to come into their own, because otherwise you'd be discarding them. On a fleet where you've perhaps got Weyoun on one of your ships, and then you've got stuff on another ship that you also don't want to be discarded, stacking text slots with Shrouds allows you to make the most. It's almost like doubling up on a crew discard in your fleet for 1 point, and I think that's a really useful ability, a really worthwhile ability, and that's why Shroud is my favourite 1 point card.
Hello there, this is Robert, or Bob Bateman. You've often seen me on Facebook knocking about, normally whinging about WizKids or some such, but today we're talking about things that we like, specifically our favourite 1 point card. Couple of honourable mentions need to go to Admiral Q, Secondary Impulse Reactor for the Federation, and Organic Conduits for the species 8472. However, the card I would like to speak about, and I am in love with, is Volatile. It's an excellent card. He says, discard this card at any time to prevent one of your crew upgrades from being disabled or discarded. If this upgrade is deployed to a ship with a port captain, you must spend 1 drone token to use this ability. Honestly, it's a fantastic card, not only in a defensive sense of stopping your opponent from ruining your day by killing your Riker or something along those lines. It allows you to use cards that say discard it to do its thing, so you can help ruin other people's days with cards and remove their stuff so that they can't kill anything. So you can use Croesus to destroy an upgrade, and you don't discard him, you discard Volatile first. Lovely little thing, great card, 1 point. If you've honestly got any crew that needs to be disabled or needs to be discarded, or just for defense, he's perfect. Thank you, bye bye.
Hey guys, this is Daniel from To The Ready Room, and my favorite 1 point card, or the top 1 point card to me, would have to be Q. Why Q? Because you don't pay a faction penalty for him, and he gives you a fairly decent ability. I helped my friend make a build for Year of Hell once with Q as the Admiral on the 4th Division battleship, and it was just deadly because you could go the 1 straight action, turn around, and it's back in action, and used the right way, Q could be a very good, deadly 1 point upgrade, or Admiral, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, my choice would have to be Q.
Hi, this is Dave Griffin. Top cards that cost 1 point. I would have to say that the best one I know about is probably Admiral Q. And the reason why is he's 1 point for any faction, and he gives you essentially a turnabout. I would say honorable mentions are Captain Clark Terrell in the Federation faction, since he can buff the rest of your fleet. Aft Particle Beam from the Vulcans is a good aft weapon you can put on almost any ship. And quite possibly the new Organic Conduits from 8472. Thanks a lot, and see you next week.
Alright, that's it. I'm done. Nothing profound. Nothing special. Just done. It's 2.5 hours later. I applaud you for listening to this.
Warp core
Thank you.
breach in
I really
10,
do mean that.
9,
I've had fun.
8,
But,
7,
you know what they say.
6,
all good things.
5,
So until next time.
4,
This is Nick.
3,
And this is David.
2,
Ejecting the
1.
core.
Warp core ejected.
Warp Core Breach is produced by Nick Norris and David Montgomery, with additional content from our contributors. Our computer is voiced by Corinne Donnelly.
Warp Core Breach is not endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with CBS Studios Incorporated or the Star Trek franchise. All Star Trek trademarks and logos are owned by CBS Studios Incorporated.
All sound files are used under Creative Commons 3.0 by attribution. For specifics, please visit our Facebook page by searching Warp Core Breach Podcast. If you want to contribute to the show, let us know on the Facebook page, or you can email us at warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com.